McDonough.
Anseo.
Councillor Mulligan. Here. Councillor Mulville. Councillor Murphy. Here. Councillor Newman. Here. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor O'Leary. Here. Councillor Onyemera. Councillor Quinlan. Councillor Quinn. Councillor Ryan. Councillor Sheehan. Councillor Shovlin. Councillor Tormey. Councillor Troy. Councillor Walsh.
County Council meeting Monday the 9th of December, 5 p.m. All mobile phones should be on silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being webcast. All members, please remember to switch off your microphone when you finish speaking. All members are reminded the chamber is a non-smoking or vaping area. Standing orders will apply to all aspects of the meeting. Councillors are reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 92 that all members are bound to act in accordance with the ethics framework and code of conduct for local authority members, to cooperate with the orderly conduct of meetings, the direction of the Mayor, and in a manner that is respectful of colleagues. Members have been circulated with the agenda for today's meeting, and any member forming the view that they have a conflict of interest in the matter subject to today's agenda should now disclose the same. Councillors are also reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 93 that members must bear in mind that discussions at council meetings are not privileged. No member may make false statements, impute improper motives, or use offensive or unbecoming words in reference to any member of the council, employee of the council, or any other person. Any member having made such statements or used such objectionable words and not explaining or retracting same, or offering apologies for the use thereof when requested to do so by the Mayor, shall be called upon by the Mayor to withdraw from the meeting. Members making any such statements or comments may find themselves personally liable for them. Item 1, confirmation and reaffirmation of the minutes. A, confirmation and reaffirmation of minutes of the council meeting held on Monday the 11th of November 2024. Proposed. Seconded, Councillor McCamley. B, confirmation and reaffirmation of the budget minutes held on Tuesday the 3rd of December. Councillor Dennison. Seconded, Councillor Humphreys. Item 2, nominations, appointment of 6 members to the Fingal Biodiversity Forum. So we are looking for 1 elected member from each of the following 3 strategic policy committees: Marine and Coastal Management SPC, Planning and Strategic Transport and Infrastructure Development SPC, Climate Action Biodiversity Environment SPC, and then 1 elected member from each area committee. So what I'll look for is, we'll start off in order and look for nominations for each of those, from each of those categories, and if we can fill it today. If we can't fill it today, we'll defer it to January's council meeting. Councillor Tormey, and this is for the Strategic Policy Committee from the Marine and Coastal Management SPC. Nominations for Marine and Coastal.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting a bit confused in the procedure of this. I'd like to just nominate somebody. Yes, me too.
Okay, grand, we'll see. But I was hoping to do them in order so we figure out which ones are which. Yeah. So, but has anybody from the Marine and Coastal Management SPC? And that's, so the people eligible are Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Mulville, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Boland, Councillor Maguire, Councillor Mulligan. Councillor Healy.
I'd like to propose Councillor Mulville.
Seconder. Okay, that's agreed from the Marine and Coastal SPC. The second one is the Planning and Strategic Transport and Infrastructure Development SPC. Eligible: Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Boland, Councillor Corkery, Councillor Doyle. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Oh no, that's correct. Councillor Doyle, Councillor Carboni Mangan, and 1 vacant. Councillor Tormey.
I'd like to propose Councillor Corkery, please.
Second. Councillor Gearin. Climate Action, Biodiversity, Environment, SPC, Councillor Newman, Councillor Shovlin, Councillor McDonough and Councillor Healy are the eligible. Councillor Humphreys.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Healy.
Seconded, Councillor McCamley. Agreed. So we now need one from each of the area committees. And Councillor McCamley. Seconder. Councillor Kitt. Agreed. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gearan, do you want to come in?
Well, for the second position, now that that first one has failed, I'd like to propose Councillor Newman.
Okay, this is for the Swords Area Committee. So Councillor Newman seconded. Seconded, Councillor Kelly. Is there any other nominations from the Swords Area Committee? No. Okay, so that's agreed. Agreed. And finally from the Howth Malahide Area Committee, Councillor Healy.
Yeah, I'd like to propose you, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks. Agreed. No, I'm delighted to be on it because it's an important committee. Agreed? Agreed. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Item number 3, questions 3 through to 11. Proposed, Councillor Humphreys. Seconded, Councillor Dennison. 12, report of committees for noting. Oh, proposer and seconder, sorry. I'll do them one by one. Report of the Organisation Procedures of the Finance Committee meeting OPF held on Monday the 11th November 2024. Proposed, seconded, Councillor Dennison. Report of the Balbriggan Rushloss Swords Services B Area Committee held on Thursday the 14th of November. Proposed, Councillor Humphreys. Seconded, Councillor Quinn. Report of the Corporate Policy Group meeting held on Monday the 2nd December 2024. Proposed. Seconded, Councillor Dennison. Report of Strategic Policy Committee, and it doesn't specify which one. Is that all of them? Yeah. Okay. Proposed. Seconded. Seconded, Councillor Dennison. Report of the Howth Malahide Services B Area Committee Wednesday the 4th of December 2024. Councillor Tormey, seconded by me. Report of the Blanchardstown Mulhuddard Castleknock Ongar Services B Area Committee held on Thursday the 5th of December. Proposed, Councillor Kitt, seconded, Councillor Walsh. 13, financial matters, no financial matters. Proposed disposal of properties. And item A, the notice of proposed disposal of land at Moortown Swords to County Dublin to Glenveigh Homes Limited. Proposed, Councillor Gearan, seconded, Councillor Humphreys. Is there any speakers on? Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. The difficulty I have with this planning application is the lack of provision for creche facilities. In terms of the overall plan, the plan itself is quite good. The mix is social and affordable, 45%, 55%, I think is quite good as well. But the difficulty I have with this is there's no childcare facility provided in this planning application. So I think, look, from my perspective, I'd like to see a commitment that there would be an assessment. I believe, according to the planning application, phase 2, there'll be a provision of a creche in phase 2. I'd like to see a commitment given from the executive today that there would be a consideration given to a creche in phase 2. The wording in the planning application is that if required, a creche would be provided in phase 2. I think a creche needs to be provided in phase 2. In fact, a creche should be provided in phase 1. We're looking at an awful lot of affordable homes here, 55%. We're going to have an awful lot of young people in there who will need affordable childcare facilities. There was a report actually published in recent months by SIPSI, Double Disadvantage, which actually highlights the fact At the Fingal area, 6% of the creche facilities are non-for-profit community childcare facilities. The national average is 27%. I'd like to see this creche in phase 2 to be prioritised and built as quickly as possible in phase 2, and that creche would be a non-for-profit community childcare facility. Thank you.
Councillor Newman.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I had a few concerns, a few queries about this, but I've spoken to the Director of Housing since and a number of people there. So I'm really happy to support it, and I think sooner the better we get moving there. Thank you.
Councillor Mulligan.
Thanks, Chair. Now, I agree with Councillor Johnson regards creche facilities. Mind you, the other phases in Murtown do have creche facility as required under the 1,000 guidelines. For every 70 homes, there's 12 creche spaces, so I think it will meet the criteria for the allocated number of creche spaces. The problem we have is, as Councillor Johnson said, is that private non-for-profit services provision is non-existent, and single owner occupier creche facilities doesn't exist anymore. They tend to have multiple creches because that's the only viable way to have creches in this day and age. We have plenty of sites that are zoned creches and they're just not being built or utilised because they don't have providers that can provide for them. It's a massive thing in infrastructure. I don't like, from an ideological perspective, the way the land is handed over to developers, the way it's done. I think I'd love to see the council use its own resources and arsenal to actually, although they did tender the process, to actually tender out to small and medium builders, which developers will do anyway. But I'm happy to see social and affordable homes go on the site. So, thank you.
Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, I'm happy enough to support the motion. I just want to support the call in regards to community creche. I just want to raise as well that the price of the affordable housing, I understand from the presentation, can change after 18 months depending on inflation. Is that correct? I only ask that question because right now there's people waiting here across Fingal looking at this and looking at other developments, and they're saving like crazy to try and get on. And I'd hate to see that the price will go up and they won't be able to avail of this. So is there any way that we can tie down these prices in any shape or form to be able to give opportunities to young couples and singles to be able to get onto the housing ladder? Thank you.
Councillor Gearan.
Yeah, I'd like to support this, and I have to say I took great satisfaction when I read through this, because this is not us just disposing of land. This is us entering into a partnership. This is us securing the land that a developer can't sell it on for profit and so on and so forth. And it's also delivering much needed affordable houses. And I don't say this cynically, I say it honestly. Whilst we all debated and argued about housing policy in the run-up to the election, our executive were in working on the finer detail. And you know what, it's going to be great if we sit down in 2 or 3 years to a development plan. The site is gone because we've looked at too many sites that haven't been developed. And I just say hats off and well done to everyone involved. And I'm looking forward to thinking the amount of people that will be able to avail of affordable homes is a tribute to all involved. Thanks.
Councillor Ryan.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'll be supporting the proposal, but I'm also supporting the call from my colleague, Councillor Johnson, in relation to the need for a commitment to childcare facility as part of phase 2. Obviously, if delivered, it ought to be a community childcare facility, but I think we'll have a discussion in future about how that comes about. I think that's for another day. But look, I'm asking for a commitment from the management today that there will be a childcare facility in part of phase 2. And no uncertainty around it. Thank you.
Councillor Butler.
Yeah, no, just thank you for the plan and all the work going into it. I'm very happy to support it. I suppose I'd like to congratulate you all for the positive article there in the Irish Times a few weeks ago, where it praised Fingal County Council as an example to the other councils around the country in terms of our speed of delivery and housing. So yeah, I'm very happy to back this. So thank you all for the hard work that went into it. I know we have the the well there, which will be great to have that well protected and become a feature, and I suppose the Abbey then on the lands next door to it. So maybe that'll be a nice feature in the area. And hopefully, I always get on about the Swords Western Ring Road, or whatever we call it, will be up that direction as well. So I suppose anything that helps finalise that around Swords, is welcome as well. So listen, I thank you all for the hard work you've done over the year and previous years in bringing these plans to us, because they really do make a difference. And we saw a lot of examples of that. People happy with the units they got when they were all out knocking on doors. Meant we'd more doors to canvass, but thank you all very much for the hard work you've put in on that. Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Chair, or thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to re-emphasise what Councillor Johnson says and the need for creche facilities in the area. I know I've raised this several times with the Chief Executive. The unit of land that's just across the road from that site would be, in my opinion, kind of ideal for the council to purchase for the much needed community facilities in the area. It would also add a bit of passive surveillance to our archaeological park and kind of tie that entire area in together. I know that there's other people looking to purchase the site, and my understanding that might have fallen through. I know it's coming up in our area meeting on Thursday, kind of asking the executive to look at that again. I'm delighted that this is going to be breaking ground. And I have to congratulate the executive for being so quick off the block in securing this land bank when it came on the market. It is going to be a fantastic facility for the much needed housing crisis in Swords. Like other speakers have said, I would quibble over the definition of affordable. I think they're below market rather than affordable, but any port in the storm at this stage. And look, I'm supporting it. There's issues obviously that I've articulated before when we've spoken about the 179A process, the structure that the council have chosen to go down to build them. But overall, it's council designed. It is council bought the land, council designed the units that are going in it, and effectively it is a council-led project. And just one other thing that I've kind of mentioned again is we've spoken before is about the connectivity in the area and looking at especially in the phase 2 and hopefully a part 8 phase 2.
Councillor Dennison.
Mayor, I just want to support this as well. We're already doing something similar in Mulhullard in Dublin 15 with the Churchfield site, which actually took a long time to get spades in the ground, but now that once contracts went out, the houses have gone up very fast. And I look forward to the 1,200 units being delivered finally there in the next few years. We've quite a few already occupied in social and affordable, and with a creche on the site as well. So now we've generated a certain momentum on these sort of projects, and I'm delighted to see this one going forward. So maybe could I ask the Chief Executive and her Director, where do we go from here? Are there other sites in mind, and you know, in the next few months, will we be making similar announcements? Thank you.
Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, I'd like to support this excellent positive development in Swords. We did get a briefing on it, and that was good. But could you remind me what the density is here from memory? I think it's 39 per hectare. It's a great deal for Swords, a good deal for Swords. I'm just kind of wondering, you know, the childcare issue has been raised. In my memory is it's either 70 or 100 triggers a need for a childcare facility, 70 or 100 homes. So I'm wondering how we can do this without triggering the need for a childcare facility. But I think you're saying it's happening in phase 2. So whenever phase 2 happens, I don't know. I haven't read all the detail. But well done, everyone, on Fingal County Council. Well done on buying the land and going out there and getting it with government money. And best of luck with the development. It's great for Swords.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to the manager for bringing forward the proposal. And certainly fully support the delivery of the housing. It's very positive, but I'd also support the call by my colleagues for a commitment to a childcare facility, a childcare service in phase 2. I think we all know, and some of us had experienced this, and most of us when we were canvassing in the general election, I think it was brought home to us very forcefully there is a huge deficit and there's a huge gap in childcare places and in provision for early education and care across the county. And I think the council needs to take the lead in addressing that proactively. I think we also need to take up again the work that the community SPC had started to do in the last term about developing a policy in favour of community not-for-profit early childhood education and care.
Thank you. This development is for 123 social and 151 affordable homes. We had a really constructive briefing for the members during the week where we teased out a lot of these issues and had a good conversation, hopefully explained it in a lot more detail. As part of the planning process, we did go through a childcare and school assessment, and yeah, we have identified that phase 2 will have a childcare facility, and the exact tenure and the exact operating model of that is yet to be determined, but we are very conscious of the benefits that community childcare can bring to an area. So that's something that's always close to our thoughts on these kind of issues. The density is 39 units per hectare. Yeah, I think in terms of the momentum, it has been a very busy year. I think a lot of the policy tools have kind of started to yield dividends on the housing construction sector, and we've kind of reaped a lot of the benefits of that from our own housing team and from the architects team, working very hard and very diligently with both the department and with stakeholders across the industry and across the design sector as well, to make sure that we can benefit as much as possible from that in a timely manner. A lot of what we talked about during the week was about the pace and the scale that this type of development arrangement can deliver. So really appreciate the support that you're giving us in terms of this disposal. In terms of the disposal as well, I suppose I explained in more detail just the detail of that and how we're retaining a good portion of the site in terms of the common areas, which will come back to us through the taking in charge process, and in terms of the social units which aren't disposed of at all. In terms of the momentum that we have generated this year, we constantly keep our eye out on the market and engage with landowners and with other stakeholders through the property team in Fingal, and conversations with our planning team as well as with other stakeholders to make sure that we have a future pipeline in order to meet the kind of increased housing targets that we are going to have to meet over the coming years. So that's a challenge for us as a council, I think, across housing, and for us collectively, I think, as a council as well. In terms of the price fluctuation, the development agreement has locked it in for 18 months. That's kind of, we pushed that as far as we thought the market would take that. It would have been commercially very unattractive, I think, and we would have ended up probably paying a lot more if we had tried to lock in as far as that. But in terms of the price that the purchaser sees, it'll be within the confines of the affordable homes legislation, which is between 5 and 40% below market value, and that'll be then the individual's exact financial circumstances will dictate where we land on that as well. So there's kind of two different moving parts in that assessment. So thanks for your comments, and I think I've covered everything there. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan, you've been in already. I'm reluctant to open again. It'll be a short point.
In the document we got 2 4-bedroom houses in this development. Can you confirm that there are or there aren't 4-bedroom houses?
Yeah, there's 187 2, 3 and 4 bed units in the development. I don't have the exact figure of 4 beds, but there is some 4 beds there.
Look, from my own point of view, I think it's really good to see the council driving and to see council directed programmes, and this isn't part of a planning process. So ordinarily, if this was a private driven development entirely, then it'll be just compliant with the legislation. But I think it's reasonable in relation to when we're discussing, and it was important that we discuss a disposal of this scale, you know, and that we discuss it. But I think it's reasonable when we're the ones driving it to raise issues such as the provision of community creches and other matters. But I'm very happy to support this and very happy to look at it within the frame and all the failures or all the weaknesses of various different schemes. I think that we have got, we cannot afford to allow kind of policy kind of differences when the election has come with an outcome that means that we're unlikely to see massive change in relation to the frameworks for any projects. So I'm very happy to support this, and I am hopefully we can see more. In relation to acquisition of land, again, it's kind of a wider point, but that really is the Achilles heel. The Kenny report addressed it. We need a mechanism whereby land can be very cheaply acquired at the point of rezoning by the state in order to develop multiple different types of housing on it, and that would help limit the massive rise in prices in housing and the unaffordability problem of both rent and acquisition. So I'll propose that. Seconder. Seconded, Councillor Humphreys. Agreed? Okay. Item 14B, notice of proposed disposal of land at Barrack Lane, Lusk, County Dublin, to Mr. Derry Peacock. Can I have a proposer? Proposed, Councillor O'Leary. Seconder. Oh, sorry, Councillor Carboni Mangan. Agreed? Agreed. Item C, notice of proposed disposal of land at North Road, Cold Winters, Dublin 11, to Mr. Clive Rooney. Can I have a proposer? Proposed, Councillor McCamley. Seconder. Councillor Humphreys. Agreed. Item D, proposed disposal of fee simple interested dwellings. There's nothing there, is there? No, there's nothing there. 15, declaration of roads. Is this for proposing each? There is, okay, sorry. Okay, we can do these all together. Okay, can I have a proposer? Or do you want to go through them? No? We're happy enough to. Can I have I'll propose. Seconder? Second, Councillor Haley. Agreed? Okay. The declaration of roads. Do I need a proposer and a second for each of these? Yeah. Item A, Ongar Village, Dublin 15. Proposed, Councillor Dennison. Second, Councillor Walsh. Agreed? B, Bellingmore Estate, Dublin 15. Proposed, Councillor McCamley. Seconded, Councillor Honorera. Heathfield Estate, the ward. Okay, Councillor McCamley wants to speak. Councillor McCamley.
Okay, we spoke about this at the area committee meeting, and I was really absolutely delighted to see that it was taken in charge, because we've been waiting for this for over 20 years. So it was great news. But having looked at it over the weekend and studied the maps, I am a bit worried that it's all been taken in charge except for the green space on the playground. And it's actually the playground that has caused the issues over the years, because it hasn't been kept in a way that it should be kept. And so I'm just worried, and I need to really know, if it's not taken in charge, when will it be taken in charge, that green space and the playground, because it's not on the map as yellow. And I spoke to people prior to this meeting, and I was told, yeah, it will be taken in charge before the end of the year, but then because it's not yellow, I'm not holding out hope. I really need to see that map yellow for the playground, so that the people in Heathfield will know that their playground is being taken in charge and that it will be looked after within the next few weeks.
Councillor Donnelly.
Arts worker, there we go. Just like to come in quickly on this. We have a similar situation in Unger, an Unger green space, although not taken in charge yet, it is looked after by the council. So I was just wondering if the green space in Heathfield isn't getting taken in charge, could the council step up their level of responsibility for help to residents? Thank you.
Councillor Anna Mara.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, one of the preconditions for taking Heathfield in charge was the playground, and that has been a major cause of discontent for residents. And there have been series of injuries, and the understanding was that before the taking in charge process kicks off, the playground was going to be ready. And we were actually reassured that the equipment to change the playground was in place. So not quite sure why that hasn't happened yet, or if there is further clarification, perhaps we want to hear from the manager. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate the councillor's concerns. I've been dealing with Heathfield for nearly 14 years. I think it was one of the first unfinished housing estates. So, look, what I would say, the taking in charge this evening is just the roads. That's normal. We deal with the open space through a separate process, deed of dedication. So, considering the amount of time and the amount of effort that has gone into bringing the estate up to a TIC effort, I would ask the councillors to support the TIC this evening, just in terms of the roads. In relation to the open space, there is an issue just around the playground. Now, I spoke to Mr. Halpenny before the meeting, and I understand that the issues around the playground will be resolved in the coming weeks. And once the issue with the playground is resolved, then we will be taken in charge, and that separate process will happen. But all I'd ask is that the two issues don't get connected, because we can go ahead and TIC the roads this evening and deal with the park and the playground as a separate issue.
Sorry.
Just to make a correction there on the agenda, it's Heathfield Estate, Capogue, not the ward.
That's just a correction and a typo or an error. Councillor McCamney.
I appreciate what the manager is saying, but you know and I know that we have been told time and time again over the last few years, yeah, the roads will be done, yeah, we'll bring it up to in charge, yeah, we'll do this. I'm talking about the developer. So I have no confidence that this playground will be ready for taking in charge within the next few weeks. I really do need to know that for the people that are looking in here from Heathfield and who have been waiting for this for such a long time, and we've let them down on so many occasions, that I can't go back to them and say, oh yeah, all the roads are taken in, but by the way, the playground that you've been talking about for the last 20 years hasn't actually been taken in charge, so the council are not going to do anything with it. So, I mean, we're depending on this developer again, and he's let us down. So I would love to be able to say to you, yeah, take it. I was so delighted to see this at the area committee meeting. I said, yeah, this is brilliant, but I mean, it's not the full picture here. And until I get a guarantee that this playground will be taken in charge and that green space will be taken in charge in the next week or two, that I find it very difficult to go to these people and say, it's half done. God knows when the next part will be done. I find it very difficult, Matthew. I just do. because I've been, as you know, working on this with the other councillors for such a long time. And I'm so embarrassed at this stage, going into these people time and time again, and they're saying, can I get this done? No, they can't because the council hasn't taken charge. Can I get that done? No, because the council hasn't taken charge. And the children that moved in to play in this playground are now married and have children of their own. I mean, when is this playground going to be taken in charge? That's all I say. On behalf of the people who are living there, I mean, it really is a disgrace.
Time, Councillor
and
McCammon.
when the other houses were built in the council, we were promised that this playground would be upgraded, and it hasn't been.
Time, Councillor McCamley, thanks. I'm going to allow the manager one chance to come. Sorry, Councillor Dennison.
Well, I just want to agree with Councillor McCamley, because I've heard her over the years and others before her talk about this estate and the playground, and I certainly understand her frustration. But I don't think, and maybe the manager can confirm this, but I don't think holding up the taking in charge of the roads is going to make any difference in terms of the delivery of the taking in charge of the playground at the Greens. So, yeah. And I don't think it's the council's fault either. Let's face it, we know who's at fault in this.
I want the manager to come back in very briefly.
Look, I completely understand the councillor's frustration on this, but as I say, I have spoken to Mr. Halpenny before the meeting, and he has assured me that the issues around the playground will be resolved. I think there has been some vandalism out there to the playground. We're simply looking for it to be fixed as soon as it's replaced, and it's at a point where we can take it in charge. There will be no delay on the council's part.
So I had a proposer from Councillor Birchall, a seconder. Seconded Councillor McCamley. Agreed? Well, we can have a vote on it either. Agreed? Agreed. Okay. Item 15D, Tormanby Hill Hoath. Proposed Councillor Tormey, seconded myself. Item E, Portmarnock South, Phase 1A, St Marnock Space Station Road, Portmarnock. Proposed. Seconded Councillor Healy. F, Oak Park Concealy. Proposed. Seconded Councillor Tormey. 16, I'm just going to vary the agenda slightly with the permission of the meeting. I'm looking to take the item 17, which is the draft corporate plan 2024-2029 first, and then the draft Flemington local area plan and the Fingal Road safety working together before going to 16. Okay, so that's item 17, and we've a report there. Jerry.
Thank you, Chair. And this is the Fingal draft corporate plan, which is the outcome of extensive consultation process with yourselves, the members, our own staff, our communities, and the businesses operating across the county. Jerry will bring you through a presentation now, just outlining all the consultation, where we came from, the results of the consultation, and then the document that you have here tonight before you. So over to you, Jerry.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Just to put this context, the planning context, it's a requirement under Section 134 of the Local Government Act 2001 that the Council has to produce a corporate plan, and it must take place within 6 months of the annual meeting, which was on the 21st of June, so we're inside that time frame. Guidelines were produced by the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage in relation to the 2024-2029 cycle for corporate plans, and we've developed the corporate plan in accordance with those guidelines. Also feeding into the corporate plan were things like the Sustainable Development Goals, all national, regional strategies and local plans, the County Development Plan, the Local Economic Community Plan, and then, as Mary said, the consultation plan, workshops, and also our public sector duty guidelines, and also the review that NOAC carried out on the previous corporate plans. So basically, the corporate plan, there's 3 strands into it. The consultation has fed into it, as well as those strategy, policies and plans, and also the sustainable development goals. And then the corporate plan sits at the hierarchy of plans and objectives within Fingal County Council. So we have our corporate themes, our corporate goals, and our corporate objectives. And once approved, they feed then into our annual service delivery plan and the service objectives within that. And then that feeds down into the operational plans and team actions and personal actions. So the corporate plan is very high level. And then as you go down through the structure, we get into the more granular objectives. So our timetable, we started on June the 4th with a presentation to the executive management team, and you can see there that over the last 6 months, we've had meetings with the corporate policy group, we've had meetings with workshops with staff, external stakeholders, and yourselves, and along the way we've been giving regular updates to the corporate policy group. We then, when we formulated the corporate plan, we had a presentation to the executive management team, we presented to senior managers, and we also presented to the corporate policy group. And we also had a briefing for councillors as well about 2 weeks ago. And again, there was feedback from that, which we have brought into the corporate plan. So today is the next stage. It's the presenting the corporate plan to you for approval. And then after that, we focus on the service delivery plan. Departments have until Thursday to get their objectives into us. Then we'll draft the delivery plan with the hope of bringing it to Council for approval on January the 13th. So the consultation process, we had 6 consultation workshops and 131 people attended it. 407 people completed the consultation survey, and 6 teams emerged across all the feedback received. And they were people, connected, safety, inclusion, grow, and sustainable. They were the words that were coming out during the process. We looked at the vision. We looked at the vision in the last corporate plan and the mission statement in the last corporate plan. And again, the feedback was that they wanted to see a vision that sort of gave a sense of belonging, creating, growing, learning, and being sustainable. And in terms of the mission, that it would be people-focused, accessible, connected, embracing the future, inclusive, and sustainable. In regard to our corporate values, I think the key thing that came out in the corporate values was that it would be people-centred. And then we had those other headings that were coming through the consultation process. All that fed into the plan framework. So the key framework for our plan is our vision, mission, values, the 6 themes and the 6 associated goals that have come out of the consultation process, and then the 40 objectives, and that then all feeds into our implementation plan. So our vision that we're proposing is that Fingal is connecting people through inclusive communities and vibrant and sustainable places, while our mission is to provide a high-quality, people-centred service, enable planned growth, lead on climate action, and celebrate our cultural heritage. Our values are to be accountable, ambitious, accessible, inclusive, and resilient. And then in terms of our plan themes, the core theme of the new corporate plan is delivery for all. And then out of that comes 6 high-level themes, which are delivering strategic infrastructure, enabling economic growth, connecting with our communities, embracing technology and innovation, driving climate action, and providing a high-quality service. So from the themes, we've also created 6 goals just to reaffirm what those themes are. So in terms of delivering strategic infrastructure, a goal is to deliver, promote, and support housing and strategic infrastructure that will secure Fingal's future. Under enabling economic growth, our goal is to enable a dynamic and outward-focused sustainable economy that will position Fingal to leverage growth opportunities. In regard to the theme connecting with our communities, our goal is to create and foster safe, well-designed places and neighbourhoods where empowered, resilient and inclusive communities can thrive. In terms of embracing technology and innovation, our goal is to leverage the benefits of a digitally enabled society. In terms of driving climate action, our goal is to lead the transition to a biodiverse and decarbonised society. And in regards to providing a high-quality service, our goal is to provide a framework for quality service delivery that combines skill, flexibility and motivation while supporting staff well-being and resilience. So underneath them lies the 40 objectives. There are 8 objectives under delivering strategic infrastructure. There are 6 under enabling economic growth, 8 under connecting with our communities, 4 under the theme of embracing technology and innovation, 5 under the theme of driving climate action, and 9 under the theme of providing a high-quality service. We circulated the draft corporate plan last week in the report pack, so I don't propose to go through one by one the 40 objectives and that, but they are wide-ranging, and again, as I say, they are at a high level, and then underneath them in the service delivery plan will come the granular objectives, which will be much more specific than the corporate plan objectives. The other sections within the corporate plan, we have the implementation plan, which shows how we're going to implement those objectives and the policies and strategies that we'll be leaning on. We have the framework in which the document is positioned. We've messages from the Mayor and the Chief Executive. We talk about the contextual piece in regard to the county and its people and the organisations and the structures. We look at the achievement of the council over the past 5 years, and then we have those themes and goals. And then in our appendices, we have things like policies and plans, who the elected members are, consultation report, and our public sector duty obligations. And then just to go back to that hierarchy of plans, following the approval of the corporate plan, we will move then to preparing the annual service delivery plan, and in that the service objectives will be aimed at fulfilling at least one of the 40 corporate objectives. The service objectives will reflect our 5 values. They will align with our vision and mission statement. They will be measurable and accountable, and they will be detailed in the service delivery plan, which we hope to bring to Council in January. And then once that's approved, we then have the departments are then going to create their operational plans, and the operational plan of each department will be designed to achieve service objectives and will contain team as well as personal objectives. So I'll hand you back now to Ms. Egan.
Thank you, Jerry. And I'll open it up. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Councillor Tormey.
Thank you very much for this plan. I'm just wondering how the Fingal Citizens Charter links in with the corporate plan, because I know the corporate plan's referenced in that, but the charter doesn't necessarily seem to be something that we are updating or is brought to the council in any kind of regular manner, certainly that I've seen. I bring that up because, and it probably comes down to the operational piece that is due to come, I think we need to review how we are treating our elderly citizens with regards to maintenance of open spaces. When we talk about say areas that I represent, which people used to look after the area outside their house for years and were able to do so, but now can't physically do it and are looking for the council for support to do that. And then what we get in return is it's the part of the citizens' charter that this can't be done, or that you're supposed to look after the space outside your own house. And I think we need to be doing a lot more to make sure that as the council we're able to step up for those kind of areas where elderly people are and are unable to maintain things as they are. So I'm basically trying to figure out, with regards to this, where the Citizens' Charter fits into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And in terms of the Citizen Charter, I suppose it probably comes in right across all of the themes and goals within the corporate plan. Obviously, the corporate plan is at quite a strategic level, and I suppose our age-friendly policies are referenced within it. But also, providing a high-quality service is one of our themes within the corporate plan, and there are a number of objectives underneath that, which I think would cover certainly. The Citizens' Charter would come in there, and delivering services to all citizens right across the county, and also delivering on our public sector duty. There are a number of objectives. There are 9 under that theme of providing high quality service that will address the issues there on the customers, the Citizens' Charter.
Okay. From my own point of view, I think one of the good things about being mayor is that you get to meet lots of people who aren't directly connected with Fingal County Council, but who work with us, and it has been very encouraging that almost invariably, with maybe one exception, people say to me that Fingal are in a position of leadership, that they're regarded as a leading council. I hear us say it, but it doesn't mean I always believe it. But I've spoken to lots of people in different organisations, from private sector, public sector, not-for-profit, and across loads of departments. And it's been very encouraging for people to say that we are in a leading position, that we are looking to help people, and that we're responsive. And this plan is going to direct, hopefully, the way that we do things. And it's changed from the previous one. And what I'm very happy about as well is that I can see the work that was done in the workshops to drive that change. And then what we'll get out of it next is a bunch of actions that everybody has to look at. So as councillors, I think it's reasonable for us to have an eye on this and to make sure that we hold the executive and ourselves to the challenge that is set in here, and then that we follow through on the objectives. And there's two bits that I'm particularly happy about: that we're taking a leadership position in relation to biodiversity and decarbonisation. And that's not just regarding ourselves, that's regarding the whole of Fingal. And that's a big change, in my view. And the other thing is around inclusivity, because I think that it's something that all, or nearly all of this council is very strong on. And as such a diverse county, that inclusivity has to be at the heart of what we do. All of the residents, no matter what you look like, no matter who you are, no matter what your religion is, that we're driving services that are people-focused for all of the residents. So I'm really proud of this as a corporate plan, and I'm happy to propose it. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Newman. Agreed? Agreed with no objections? No vote called? Thanks. Item number 18, we have amendments to standing orders. So these are the, yeah.
These are the amendments that were agreed at OPNF last month, and it's just bringing them forward now so that they can be included in the standing orders right now, and then we will proceed to, as agreed at the OPNF. Also last month, we will proceed then to review the remaining standing orders as we had agreed previously, but these are the ones that were agreed at OPNF.
So it's in relation to the attendance of public at some of the SPC meetings and that. So I'm happy to propose. Councillor Mulville, agreed? Sorry, Councillor Guerin, I didn't see you. Apologies.
Does that mean, and I'm supporting it, I'm only literally a point of information, so all future SPCs will need to be held in the chamber, will they?
No, we can, if a media outlet wants to attend, they can just request an invite and they'll be given it.
All right,
they come
okay.
through the communications office.
But we're not going then on webcast on it? No. Okay. My misunderstanding. Apologies.
Sorry, so that's agreed? Agreed. Thanks. Item number 20, the draft Flemington local area plan. Take that next.
Short presentation.
Oh, we have a short presentation here. Sorry, Patricia Cadigan. Cadigan. Apologies, Patricia.
Good evening, members. I'll just give you a very short presentation in relation to the draft Flemington local area plan. The CE's report on submissions received has been forwarded to you for your consideration. So our draft Flemington local area plan commenced consultation back in February with the issues paper, and subsequently public consultation in September, stretching into October of this year. So why a local area plan? A local area plan has been prepared in relation to these lands, and it's based on and is compliant with the local area plan guidelines for planning authorities 2013, which in essence provide for proper consultation with the public and statutory consultees, and are subject to the approval of the elected members. And together with the development plan, establish a key element of the policy context for making decisions on planning applications and appeals. So a local area plan must be consistent with the higher order development plan for the area. So just to, obviously you're very familiar where the location of the LAP lands lie, but they're just to the very northwest of Balbriggan. You'll see here there's an area of rural RU zoned lands immediately to the north. The RA zoned lands represent the local area plan. There's a very important local objective here, which is an element of the Balbriggan Ring Road, which is an objective under the transportation schemes within the development plan to complete. Flemington Lane lies to the immediate south of the lands with a number of individual houses located there, and the R132 lies to the east. In terms of where we are and what we wanted to achieve in relation to the Flemington Local Area Plan, there's been widespread consultation with a number of stakeholders in relation to this. So in summary, the development of the LAP lands at a level that is appropriate for the existing local context through the delivery of a new residential neighbourhood that will offer a variety of new homes and a quality place to live. New residential neighbourhood will be supported by community facilities, high quality public open space, active travel measures, and will meet the needs of the future population of the area. So I think the emphasis there, just to point out, is on the creation of community. So a community needs its facilities, needs housing, obviously, and Fingal is through the fore in providing for housing, but we need to provide for community facilities as well. Balbriggan will benefit from the upgrade of the DART, the arrival of DART. We're rolling out significant active travel measures in the area as well, so it's very important that we're delivering housing in tandem with facilities. In terms of the background to the lands as well, there's been a number of planning applications previously before the board which have been refused. Two applications in particular, one for 73 and one for 74 houses. And the board in these cases, in refusing permission, was cognizant of the ad hoc and piecemeal approach to the development that was being brought forward, and that it would have prejudiced the development of adjoining lands and wouldn't have delivered a plan-led approach to the provision of integrated and equitable community facilities and infrastructure, and that they also found difficulty with the density, which was less than 30 dwellings per hectare at the time, and in line with the guidelines in place at that time. So I think it's just important to note that that's where our starting point in terms of how do we deliver a local area plan on these lands that will address the previous reasons for the refusal, but also bringing about community facilities in tandem with housing. So the basis for our local area plan, key themes: homes for all, creating communities, active travel, green spaces, public spaces, environment and climate action, character areas, and the development of 4 key character areas, which you see there on the right-hand side of the screen. Again, just showing the LAP lands in the context of Balbriggan. Again, the important local objective to provide for a key component of the overall Balbriggan C-ring. You'll see that other areas, other parts of it located to the west here. Part of this has been or will be delivered as part of a previous application which went before the board earlier, or last year rather. So in effect then, what does this look like on the ground? So you'll see here a layout from the local area plan showing the character areas, how a particular layout might arise. It's important to say that there is a great deal of flexibility in the plan and how a development might be brought forward. There are key objectives to be provided, and this is one particular layout, providing for residential development, community facilities, a small level of commercial floor space, community floor space, 2,000 square metres or roughly, elderly housing, Muga, play areas, creches. So everything that needs to be provided to encourage placemaking, a sense of community and a sense of identity. What this might translate to on the ground, again, you know, given the densities that we have to achieve here, how this might look, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories, potentially with open spaces, Mugas. So a sense of identity, again, and a sense of placemaking are vitally important here. Braymore Regional Park is important to note also. This is immediately adjacent to the east of the LAP lands. O'Dwyer's GA Club will be relocated, and there will be access from the LAP lands directly into these via the active travel spine, and also onward then into Balbriggan. A key component of the phasing of the LAP is phasing and the delivery of these facilities that I've spoken about in phase 1. You'll see there in the table on the right hand side the elements that have to be provided or must be provided in phase 1. I think just to reiterate, it's to overcome the reasons for refusal from the previous Bord and Bord Pranola decision, where they spoke about ad hoc and piecemeal development and delivery of housing, which was not plan-led. So we've been very cognizant of this all the way through the LAP process and in our engagement with stakeholders and community groups there. So we feel that the phasing arrangement as shown is very important. It's important to note also that housing is split evenly between the two phases, with approximately 300 in each phase of delivery. But we would see this as being a key area, a key intrinsic part of the LAP, that the phasing is delivered. Just a brief summary then in terms of the steps to date. I spoke about the issues paper. They've commenced the process of public consultation. There's been widespread engagement with stakeholders, environmental bodies, local community groups and landowners. Public consultation on the draft plan was concluded in October, and you've been furnished with the CE's report. There are 4 motions which have been submitted on foot of the CE's report, and if you're in agreement, we'll take that all other recommendations arising from the CE's report are acceptable. I'll just move on to the motions.
We're having some technical difficulties there, are we?
So there are 4 motions received in relation to the CE's report. First motion is motion number 1 from Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, the first one, let's take, I think we'll take them individually if that's all right. So, okay, Councillor O'Leary.
My mic is on now. So, yeah, I'd like to take them, if subject to the management agreement, take them 2 by 2, and I would speak once. They're in 2 topics. One is phasing, second one is density, and 2 motions on each. And I can make one speech, shall we say, one contribution.
Happy to do that.
If that's okay with
Great.
everyone else.
I'll
all right?
second.
So can I propose the first motion? And
yeah, we may have to vote on them separately.
That's okay, I
but
understand.
That's
Yeah,
it. But
that's fine.
Yeah, let's just be clear about which 2 you're taking
So
first.
motion 1 and 2 is on phasing.
I'll second both of them.
Second, Councillor Tony.
Opposed and seconded. Okay. Thank you. So shall I speak to it or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I want to welcome the long-awaited local area plan and delighted to see it, and I think it's a good plan. However, I have a couple of concerns, and in this particular case of concerns about the phasing. And I want to see the housing provided here and actually happen here as soon as possible. And I'm concerned that the prescriptive phasing plan in the LAP will inhibit the delivery of the actual plan. So the law of unintended consequences is at play. everyone would support delivering open space in advance. We've had loads of problems in this council with that, and delivering roads in advance. But the reality of delivering the roads is normally houses have to be built as you move along, and the houses pay for the road. That's the way it works. In this case, there are 5 owners. This isn't in the ownership of one, developer, builder, whatever it is. There's five different entities involved. So if one of them delays for whatever reason, personal or otherwise, wants to keep farming or whatever it is, all the others are held up because we're insisting on 100% delivery in the first half of this development. So we're insisting on the 100% delivery of a good link road, which is great, and an active travel road, which is great, and the open space, which is great. But it must be done by landowners in phase 2 who can't build any houses. So I don't think it's going to happen in reality. That's the issue I have. So I'm suggesting that the phasing be dealt with as part of the planning application process. I'm suggesting that this phasing plan here be removed from the LAP. That's what the 2 motions are proposing. I'd wait to hear the manager's response, but I'm concerned that after all the work we've done, the wonderful plan we have, that we're not going to get the houses, that we're going to be snookered if this doesn't move on as per this plan. We have a state housing company based out of Cork that funds roads. It's a new setup, and they fund roads on the delivery of the houses, and when the houses are built, they get their money back. And this isn't doing that. This isn't asking someone who has land to build a road and nothing's happening around them. It's asking someone who has land to put in open space and no houses around it for passive surveillance. So I'm not sure if it's well thought out in that regard, and that's my concern mainly, and that's what I'm putting to the management. I want to hear the response. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. And similar concerns as Councillor O'Leary has laid out there, and I won't repeat what he has said. My understanding is that if we have 5 landowners, and if the 3 landowners who are eligible to put to land a planning application, that they will have to put in a planning application in advance in order to deliver the road on lands which they don't own, so it will be deemed invalid. So I want to know from the manager, can he explain to me in legal planning terms how we're going to overcome an issue with 5 landowners that are going to need to come together in a business deal to cede over land to deliver a road. It's going to have to go in advance of the planning application for houses. So the objective for everybody here is to get the land developed, get the houses delivered into the area. As we all know, we need them. But I think that sometimes unintended consequences of objectives that can be put through a planning process maybe are not fully thought out, or maybe I'm actually missing something here. But in my opinion, looking at 5 landowners, and I know them, and I know the issues on the ground. I actually live in the area, so I'm very, very aware of the complications that exist with regard to bringing people together. I may not have full sight of all the planning regs that can actually unravel this conundrum, if you like, but certainly I'd like to see this delivered, and I'd like to fully understand how we can get 5 people to invest in a road where 2 of those landowners will have absolutely no return until phase 2, which could be 36 or 48 months later. So that's an issue that I have of concern with regard to moving the land and getting it delivered, when the main objective is to get it delivered. Thank you.
Councillor Mulville.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the Chief Executive for the report. Just in terms of phasing, it probably is, it's very important that we do include phasing in local area plans. We don't always see the phasing happening as it is written, but it's important we do, include it in there so we can see the, proper provision of basic infrastructure before housing is built. I think it's one of the things that comes up so much during, for example, the recent election campaign when we were canvassing, people wanting to say we must have basic infrastructure along with it before we see housing delivered. So I wouldn't support this proposal from Councillor O'Leary. I think we do need to have phasing built into this local area plan and all local area plans. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Chair. Again, like Councillor Mulvihill, I am in favour of phasing, and I think it's a difficult situation where we have 5 landowners. That's the challenge. This is a local area plan for an area of land. If it was only one landowner, we wouldn't have that challenge. But that's not in our control to manage 5 landowners, unfortunately. I'm always conscious that if we build homes, that we don't put in the infrastructure, that we end up not putting in the road. And I would like to think that it's done in conjunction with the development of houses. It is unfortunate that there is 5 landowners. And I'd like to think, and I think Councillor Murphy has asked the question, how do we manage when a planning application goes in by 2 of the landowners to build the road on 5 landowners' pieces of ground? But I do think it is important that we have the phasing in it, because we've got to protect the lands that's there to make sure that the community facilities and the infrastructure is put in place in conjunction with the building of the houses. Thank you.
Councillor Gearan.
I wouldn't be very qualified really to make a contribution to this, but on listening to what I've heard and listening to Councillor O'Leary and Councillor Murphy, whom I have great respect for, I have to say I disagree with them. I think phasing is important in this particular plan, and I think in all plans, so as we can learn from the mistakes of the past where we haven't taken the precautionary measures. Now, that there's 1 or 5 landowners wouldn't influence my voting for this particular plan. That someone has to wait 36 or 48 months, well, boo-hoo, not our problem. Our problem is to deliver a plan, but to ensure that we're not just delivering an opportunity for somebody to build a whole load of houses, and we haven't done the phasing and taken the important steps to protect those people who will be buying houses, that everything is laid out and in place for them. So I have to say I can't support Councillor O'Leary's motion, and I think phasing, I know very little about it, but I think it is crucially important for proper development of an area. Thanks.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mayor. The concept of phasing did occur to me as I was listening to the presentation, because, as other members have said, phasing is very important, particularly in very large sites. And there was a time when a site like this would have taken a number of years to build out and to be occupied. But it occurred to me when listening to this that this is essentially 600 units, that if they were built today, they would be occupied tomorrow. And I just wonder, was phasing really necessary? And especially when there are a number of landowners involved. And I think the other question is, well, how many builders will be involved? And how, what will be the scale of the development in terms of delivery? I think that's important as well. So I've listened to what Councillor Gearan has said, and we have to be cognizant of those who are going to be living there, that they're not looking at potato fields where a playground should be, or further housing should be for another 3 or 4 years. So that's something to consider as well. Can I just ask, while I have the mic on, there was a reference early in the presentation to a ring road to the northwest of that. And then I saw on a further slide that this road was actually the access road through the development. So is it then that the ring road is the road through the development? Thanks.
Councillor Healy.
Cormac Vera. I just wanted to come in when I heard Councillor Maguire saying that if it was 1 landowner instead of 5, then we wouldn't have an issue with phasing. And the sad reality is that that's not the case. We have a situation in Baldoyle where we have 1 landowner, and where the phasing agreed to in the local area plan was exactly what should have happened. But we haven't been implementing that in our planning enforcement. And the results of failing to get the phasing right and implement the phasing right in the planning system are devastating for local communities, for people who need to access amenities, public transport, shops and schools. And I think it's absolutely vital that we have the phasing right in this local area plan. But I'm still concerned that we need to make sure that we implement it in our planning conditions and our planning enforcement. Thank you.
Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, look, this phasing is vitally important. We're all
some of us are living in estates that are still not completed because we haven't implemented phasing. I think it's vitally important. And the challenge there for the council is that the 5 landowners, without a shadow of a doubt, and I'll just be interested to see what how the management feel about that, how we're going to manage that. And I just think that we need to be proactive here, and we need to sit around the table. We need to talk to the landowners, and if there is going to be a time scale that some landowners are going to have to wait, then so be it. We have to do this right. We have an opportunity to do it right, and I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that there is an extensive housing list, notwithstanding Balbriggan, all over Fingal, and we need to face these challenges head on. So I'd be very much supporting the management on this.
Look, from my own point of view, there is a more general difficulty in relation to exactly this, where you have multiple landowners, and there is a solution. There's been a solution around for nearly 40 years. It's called the Kenny Report, and basically when planning zoning happens, you would implement a plus 10% or plus 5% compulsory purchase by the state, if they wish to, in order to acquire the land, so that we can drive it like we drive church fields or the other land that we have, but we're not there. But this is a planning decision. Land ownership shouldn't come into a planning decision. What we should be basing our vote here on is what's the right thing to do from a planning point of view. And it's absolutely clear from any one of us who've had to deal with any of the implosions that we have in relation to the pitfalls of phasing, where we've 10, 15 years. We had one earlier here, where we have taken in charge. I mean, it's not directly related. There's a playground being taken in charge when the kids are growing up, and so I can't be in a. We've got and the other. We've got to aspire. We've got to put in place plans that will allow communities to be built. It's within our development plan. It's the core of all of our development plan. And I agree with Councillor Gearan, Councillor Healy, Councillor Quinn, that we can't be in a position where we're introducing land ownership as a consideration, no matter how well-meaning in a view that we're trying to drive X, Y, Z. We need to find a way in order, and people need to find a way if they wish, to do this. But phasing, we've got to put phasing in as part of our proposal. I'll allow the manager to come. Sorry, Councillor O'Leary, do you want to hear from the manager first? Yeah, we'll hear from the manager first, if that's all.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for all your comments. I suppose I've raised in the presentation the difficulties that have arisen over the years in relation to individual applications being tabled. There's been a number, as I said, refusals from An Bord Pleanála in relation to this, and they point to difficulties such as ad hoc and piecemeal nature of development and the failure to adhere to a plan-led development. We have taken that and tried to come up with a local area plan that takes on board those concerns in terms of delivering new communities for North West Balbriggan, which should be all-inclusive, and any impasse in relation to agreement between individual landowners. We've tried to take that on board, but in effect, we need to provide housing and we need to provide facilities and community facilities at the same time. You'll see there in the table the breakdown in terms of phase 1 and phase 2, and the level of amenities and supporting social infrastructure that is needed to support housing at this location are set out. So again, limited commercial floor space, active travel hubs, public plaza, teenager space, playground space, and all of these things are things that have come out of public consultation with community groups on the ground. So we would argue that the best way forward to deliver those facilities and to deliver housing in tandem and to create cohesive communities at this location is for this phasing plan to be adopted as part of the LAP. Councillor Dennison, you mentioned the road infrastructure as well. And you'll see there at the north of the LAP lands, there's a roads objective set out in the transportation schemes within the development plan. And this is the Balbriggan bypass. So this is the northern component of a much longer route, the majority of which has been permitted. So this would be incorporated as part of the LAP and would provide that important new key street to the north of the lands. This in turn would benefit the wider Balbriggan area as well and assist in active transport provision, alleviating traffic congestion on Flemington Lane, providing links to Braymore Regional Park. So there's a number of benefits accruing from this, and that is why it is included as part of this phasing arrangement. So I would argue that to provide the LAP and to provide the level of development, which is not, we feel, exceptionally large, and there are many larger schemes within Balbriggan and elsewhere within the county where greater numbers of units have been provided. But I would state again that to create communities and to create placemaking and good communities in this part of Balbriggan, it's vital that the phasing arrangements as proposed in the plan are delivered.
Mr. McAleese.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank all the councillors for the very valuable contributions. A lot of them have said it much better than me in terms of the importance of phasing, and a lot of the councillors will have gone through development plans and other local area plans where the issue and the importance of delivering housing with physical and social infrastructure in a timely fashion. It has repeatedly come up since all my time in Fingal. It's an issue that has repeatedly come up. What has led to phasing here is proper planning, but at the same time we do live in the real world, and we know that there are 5 landowners out here, and we've met all of those landowners, and we have tried to be as equitable as possible in terms of the delivery of the phasing. But at the end of the day, what we have to do, the right thing for Balbriggan and the right thing for the future occupants of these lands, because it's 600 units, and it's really important that we plan it correctly. Just in terms of, this is the plan, so this is the very first stage in the process. Obviously, we would like to be dealing with one landowner, but if issues do arise, we have tools. I'm familiar with HISCO. I think that's what Councillor O'Leary was referring to. We've met them before, and we'd be willing to discuss a project like this again. We can look at a Part 8, and we can also look at CPO. There are tools available to Fingal County Council, but we are absolutely committed to getting housing delivery here, but it has to be done right, and we need the phasing.
Councillor O'Leary.
Okay, thank you. Interesting to listen to all the contributions. Just to make it very clear, I'm in favour of phasing, and I'm also in favour of the plan. But and phasing has been handled before at planning application stage. So at that stage, and that's what I'm proposing. I want to quote back a quote from Patricia Cadigan there. It's very important that housing is built in tandem with facilities. That's what I'm asking. In tandem with facilities, not in advance, because it's not realistic. However, Matthew McAleese has referred to some possibilities there of that solutions that might assist in doing that. It is a complicated situation. I do want to see it built out. I do want to see all the facilities, but I'm a bit worried that we'll end up with stalemate and stuck, and we'll have no homes here, because we're depending, the first movers, shall we say, in the first 50%, 300 homes, they need the cooperation of the other landowner who's not going to get anything out of it. And you're asking, put yourself in his shoes. I know we're not supposed to talk about them, but why would you build a road with nothing? You get nothing out of it. You'll get it in 3-4 years, maybe. So that's the practical, real problems of this. And I was suggesting that the phasing, which I'm in favour of, be dealt with at the planning application stage, and phase by phase, piece by piece, the road is delivered as the planning application comes in. That's how we did it before. Anyway, I'm going to accept the manager's report. on foot of the assurances, in particular given by Matthew McAleese there. Thank you.
For both of them.
For both motions on phasing.
Okay, if we can bring up the next two motions, please. Seconded by Councillor Leary and Councillor Tormey.
Yeah, I can speak to it, yes. Okay, so my concern here was that there was a change, maybe a change in the density for this site, which is on the edge of the town of Balbriggan, up to possibly 80 per hectare. Now, 80 per hectare is not something we're used to in the town of Balbriggan. It may be there in some places, but mostly the developments that I've seen, one in particular near this area was 35. Moortown, we just discussed it, was 39. I think Ballymaston, and Matthew can correct me, was maybe in 35-ish direction. So my concern, why did I put these motions in? Because there's a concern that we might be forced to do 80 per hectare. What does that mean? It means a lot of apartments. And the people of Balbriggan would like more houses, please. The market would like more houses. Sure, high density houses, 2-bedroom houses, and or duplexes, and some apartments. So I'll wait to hear the manager's response, but noting the 3 or 4 examples I gave you there, I would hope that we would get 35, 39, 35, something of that nature per hectare in this development plan, local area plan.
Councillor Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. And again, I'd just like to speak in support of the numbers and hoping that the provision would be made to keep it consistent with the 35 to 50 per hectare. I know we had another master plan which didn't have the statutory ability to limit the heights and densities in Castleland. That was unfortunate when we had debated it and agreed it here on the floor for a number of weeks, and then the LDA went ahead and just discarded it. So I'd be interested to see what the limitations are going to be put on here with regard to the densities. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other speakers, Ms. Callaghan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for your comments there. We received a submission from the OPR which required us to, I suppose, double down on explain probably in a little bit clearer manner the densities that will be required on the land. So this is something that would have been required regardless under the ministerial guidelines, and we previously had this in our LAP. So it's a key town, large town, suburban, urban extension looks for densities in the range of 30 to 50 dwellings per hectare, and this is from the Sustainable Residential Development and Compact Settlement Guidelines for Planning Authorities under Section 28 Ministerial Guidelines. So we would see, obviously, the local area plan is one iteration of how those densities could be achieved across the site in terms of the character areas. What you see on screen are examples of densities of 36, 37, upwards of 40 that can be provided. So while there is a gateway development identified in carriage areas 1 and 4, we would see the majority of development here being 3-4 stories in height, so not exceptionally dense and not exceptionally high. There is a requirement for us to ensure that there isn't one typology of development across the lands as per the building heights guidelines. So I think as part of the development management guidelines, a planning application lodged in relation to the lands would bring forward a scheme that meets the ministerial guidelines, the compact settlement guidelines, and adheres to the requirements of the LAP. So this may provide for a variety of tenures and typologies, all of which would be supported in the LAP.
Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you. I accept the manager's report.
Thanks. So we'll pass the resolution. So it is recommended the Council make the local area plan as amended by passing the following resolution: that Fingal County Council, having prepared and published the draft Flemington local area plan, having taken into consideration the representations received, and having considered the report of the Chief Executive, hereby resolves pursuant to section 23D of the Planning and Development Act 2000 to adopt the Flemington local area plan. Proposed. Seconded, Councillor McCamley. Agreed? Agreed. Item 19, Fingal Road Safety Working Together Group.
Thank you, Mayor. Fingal have set up a road safety working together group and invited participants from An Garda Síochána, Dublin Fire Brigade, Transport Infrastructure Ireland, the National Transport Authority and Dublin Airport. The setting up of the Road Safety Working Together group follows an action set for each local authority in Ireland's Government Road Safety Strategy 2021 to 2030 and actions for same set out in the action plan, phase 1 of the action plan. The two specific actions are action number 94, establish a Road Safety Working Together group in each local authority area to coordinate multi-agency road safety policy and implementation at a local level. And action number 95, each local authority road safety working together group to publish a multi-agency road safety action plan and to publish an annual review on progress with implementation. The Council requested that each area committee nominate a representative to attend the Road Safety Working Together group and that these members be ratified by the full Council, and the following nominations were received from Balbriggan, Rush, Lusk, Swords, Councillor Darren Jack Kelly, and Blanchardstown, Mulhuddard, Castleknock, Ongar, Councillor Angela Donnelly, and Howth Malahide, Councillor David Healy.
We proposed. Seconded, Councillor Humphreys. Agreed? Agreed. That brings us to item 21. The Mulhuddard Cemetery. Is there any? No report on it. Proposed? Proposed. Councillor McCamley, seconded. Councillor Dennison. Agreed? Okay. Item 22, the Chief Executive's report. Sorry, apologies, I need to go back to item number 16. The confirmation of the submission of the Chief Executive report to elected members pursuant to 13(1)(ab) of the Planning Development Act 2000. Which one is that? Sorry, this is so this is the variation from proposed by Councillor Healy with the report presented. Councillor Healy, do you want to come in?
Thanks to the Chief Executive for producing the report. It's taken 4 weeks to get it, which was the statutory period, and I appreciate that that's involved a good bit of research and consideration, and I think it deserves us to take some time to consider it. My initial reaction is to hope to continue ahead with the variation, but I would hope with your permission to return to that in January once we all had time to look at the report. Thanks very much.
Great. So the start of the variation is for the management to present a report on it. It's there. They've done so, which fits in with the requirements. And then we as a council will take away, and then we'll need to come back with a motion if we wish to initiate a variation, which would be against the advice as given in that particular report. And that'll be done through the normal channels of the motion submission piece. So we're happy to note this report. Noted? Noted. Item number 22, Chief Executive's report.
Members, as the last report of the year, I suppose I'm not going to dwell on it other than to present a very strong report to you from each of our departments. It just remains for me to thank you and the management team and all of our staff for your work during the year. We've achieved a lot during 2024 with more to do next year. So happy to take any questions.
So the report noted. Noted. There is a first. Correspondence 25th, these are for noting, yeah. Letter dated 8th of November 2024 from Dublin City Council, Councillor Humphrey's motion, transient visit tax noted. Item B, letter dated 11th of November 2024 from Monaghan County Council, the Primary Medical Certification Scheme noted. Letter dated 13th of November 2024 from Kerry County Council, the Apple tax ruling noted. Letter 28th of November 2024 from Leitrim County Council, CCTV in towns and villages noted. And no departmental or ministerial correspondence. So item 27, Councillor Boland, number of planning applications lodged by the DAA since September 2022. Councillor Boland is not in the no, he's not. He's left. So then we go on to, and he's not given permission for that to be passed. Or item 28, Councillor Leddy, servicing land of Fingal Site Service Fund. Councillor Leddy.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are you proposed?
Proposed.
Seconded by Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I suppose my motivation for submitting this this motion was my general view on watching the development of public housing in Fingal. I suppose based on my own experiences out in Dublin 15, Churchfields, I view Churchfields as an extremely successful model of public housing, with one caveat, and that's being simply the timeline that it has taken. I first got a presentation on Churchfields in 2017, and while it's nearing completion, and as I said, it is an excellent example of public housing. It is frustrating that during such a shortage, it has taken so long. When it comes to delivering public housing, the first step is it has to be zoned appropriately. Then the land has to be serviced. The council have to apply to the government for funding to service it. Then it has to be designed. If we don't have enough designers in Fingal, we have to recruit them, and that has to go through the public appointments system. Then we have to do an environmental impact assessment. Then we have to do a public consultation. Only then does it go through planning, and only then does it go out to tender. So all that happens before a shovel goes in the ground. So it is a very long process. And my own view on getting these done quicker is that some of these processes can be done earlier through early contractor involvement, or through applying for servicing, applying for funding to service the land at an earlier stage. And I suppose going forward, the site I am thinking about is Dunsink, which could provide up to 5,000 houses, more actually. And I think it is entirely within the capability of the people in this room to decide whether Dunsink, for example, is a 20-year project or a 5-year project. And I think it's in our hands to make it a 5-year project. And what I'm suggesting in this motion is that we get ahead of the curve and do the first stage, get it out of the way, which is applying for funding for the servicing of the land. We know we're going to need that land serviced. Why not have the very first step done now and apply to the government for, I'm not sure what it is now, if it's a site service fund or a LIHAF or whatever mechanism, but it's similar to that. But there's no reason why we can't begin that process at this point, and at least have step one completed. I'd be interested to hear other people's thoughts on it. Thank you.
Councillor Mulville.
Thanks, Jerry. Just in relation to the service site fund, I think there had been 10 million euros approved in relation to Ballymastone and the provision of affordable housing there, and I think that was in 2021. So I think just looking to know, in terms of the fact that those affordable homes have gone through the process pretty much, has that money actually been drawn down yet by the council? Is that money, that service site fund, 10 million for Ballymastone, now in the council's coffers? Thanks.
No other questions. So, from my own point of view, just I hadn't been aware that we were talking in particular about the Dunsink lands, but I think I'd be very happy to support this. My only sort of question is, I think we should be ambitious about trying to service lands, but I think the order in which they're serviced needs to be aligned with the order in which they're likely to be developed. We shouldn't be in a position where we're servicing one set of lands that's not ready when there are other lands that maybe need to be there. But again, council ownership would seem to be the quite obvious, an obvious place to start. Again, when we look at lands in private ownership and we don't have control over why they're delivered, as has previously been illustrated by discussion in relation to Flemington, I think it's perfectly logical to be looking to service lands that are owned by the council so that they're ready to come on stream. Maybe the manager would like to come in.
Thanks. Yeah, I suppose it's something that is really at the forefront of our whole approach to housing delivery and development, delivery of development in general, in terms of the forward planning phase that we need to really plan out and map out how we deliver services and infrastructure to make sure that we can deliver development in a timely manner. And I suppose we seek to do that on our own land, and we seek to facilitate that with for privately owned lands as well, so that we have that continuous pipeline of economic and residential development lands coming on stream. We've been quite successful in terms of the Service Site Fund and the LIHAF funding as well. A number of key schemes were delivered by those schemes and continue to be delivered by those schemes, including the large ones that we have at Ballymastone, Moortown, which we spoke about earlier, and Churchfields. And then at a more strategic level, I suppose, we do engage very closely and very regularly and constructively with the other agencies which are responsible for utilities and transportation infrastructure, to make sure that all of those components come together and that we're not left with a site that has most things in place but is still lacking one or two key services. So from kind of the housing and community development side, I think it's something that I think we do very well, and we work very closely with our colleagues in planning and architects and property development across the council to make sure that that's all aligned. With respect to Dunsink, maybe I might hand over to Mr. McAleese, who might have more comments on that particular site. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. So you'll be aware, the council will be aware that the Dunsink lands were zoned by yourselves back in March 2023. It's a significant council-owned land bank, and it's currently zoned as a strategic land bank. But we would look to accelerate the delivery of the Dunsink lands. We'll be appointing consultants in the coming weeks to begin the process of the preparation of a statutory plan for those lands. And it'll require a significant amount of engagement with key stakeholders such as the NTA, Uisce Éireann, Dublin City Council, about how we're going to bring those lands forward. You mentioned about 5,000 units. It has probably the potential of about 10,000 units, so it is probably the most significant land bank that we have in our ownership, and we are very committed to bringing it forward as quickly as we can. Just in terms of funding, there's potentially an opportunity to apply for URDF funding, and that will be one of the first tasks that the consultants will be given to make sure that they are ready for the next call, which will hopefully happen in the middle of next year. But we will absolutely be going after URDF funding for Dunsink if the criteria aligns with being able to do that. So it's important that the call does align with the development of those lands. So again, I would ask for if any of the members could support that. I think it would be very helpful, because it will require significant state investment to bring those lands forward. It's not something that Fingal is going to be able to do on its own. So we would ask for everyone's support in the room in terms of securing funding for those lands. But it is very much ongoing, and we look forward to keeping all of the members updated as we progress with those plans.
Executive to come in.
Just to support Mr. McAleese in his comments there, I do believe in terms of the delivery of the next phase of housing delivery in Fingal that a new infrastructure fund is crucial. I would hope that the next programme for government will identify funding in order to activate greenfield sites that are currently well located in Fingal but will require infrastructure. So I'll be waiting with interest, I suppose, to see that the next programme for government will address that. It is really crucial. On the timeline, just to mention in terms of Moortown, which was just approved today, and we would hope to get on site pretty quickly. We bought that land in July 2023. It's been through planning and is now moving through design, etc., to be on site in 2024. So as we've moved through our development proposals, you can see that each time we've gathered speed and learned new models that help housing delivery more quickly. But that's really down to the expert team we have in the council who have been able to provide that service to us and get our projects on site.
Councillor Laddie.
Thanks very much. Look, I suppose the situation I'm trying to avoid is one where we lose a year because of annual funding from the government through LIHAF or site service fund. But I accept URDF is probably different. So look, I mean, I'm glad to see that you're clearly on this, but it's our job to sort of keep pushing the executive on this, because, like I said, it could be a 20-year project or it could be a 6 or 7-year project, and I certainly hope it's the latter. Thank you.
Do you want to accept the Councillor Mulville, you're late in.
Thanks, Chair. No,
I'll indulge you this once.
Thank you very much. You're most kind. Just to press the question I asked in terms of the drawdown of the 10 million.
Sorry, yeah.
Please, that's it. Just have we got it? Yes.
Yeah.
Is the question.
It's not drawn down yet, but it's approved, and it'll be drawn down once the construction commences on the actual recreational hub.
And apologies, Councillor Mulville, you were correct there. Is that noted, Councillor Laddie?
Yes, thanks.
Item number 29, Councillor Quinlan.
It ain't been on, sure. On seconded.
Councillor Quinlan.
Yeah, so thanks very much, sir. Essentially, I asked this as a question originally in first council meeting I was in attendance of, and was given the answer that we have the information. People have to tick a box, fill out the information on their social housing application form. It's just that it'd take too long for the council to collate that information. That's why I'm putting it down here as a motion today. Yeah, that's why I'm putting it down here as a motion today. This is one of the main things that my constituents are looking for an answer to. In 2013, Councillor Curtin Dennison asked a very similar question, and was given an answer. At that time, it was 51% of Fingal County Council social housing list was for the national, and I think that's just a bit of a gap in between then and now for an update on that figure, and that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking the council to support an update on that figure.
Councillor Birch.
Thanks, Chair. I'm opposed to this motion. I'm glad the council didn't answer it, and I hope they don't answer it in future, because it's a divisive motion, and the implication is to blame migrants for the housing crisis. Migrants aren't to blame for the housing crisis. If you're on the housing list, it's because you need housing, and your nationality is irrelevant. The cause of the housing crisis isn't migrants, it's Irish men, mainly in suits, that took ideological decisions over many decades to commodify housing. This is why we have this catastrophe. You know, our catastrophe is a bonanza for the landlords and the developers and the vulture funds. That's why we have the housing crisis, and the solution was always known. The state needed to intervene, large-scale construction of social and affordable housing. We have several motions here this evening on dealing with that topic, and that's what the state should do now. It should establish a state construction utility to build these houses directly to resolve the housing crisis, and it should employ workers from everywhere, from every nationality. They should be employed in good quality permanent jobs. If they're not building the homes, schools and hospitals that we need, they should be training apprentices, etc. So really, to resolve the housing crisis, we certainly do not need motions like this, which is pointing the finger of blame at groups who are not responsible. We should be pointing the finger of blame up the way, not at those struggling on the bottom, alongside Irish people and many other nationalities. Thanks.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thanks very much. I'd like to echo everything my colleague Councillor Burchell has said. Like a lot of councillors in this room, I've knocked on a lot of houses this year, and particularly over the past few months, and have been knocking on doors all over Corduff, Mulhuddart, Blanchardstown, LEA, Blanchardstown, Mulhuddart, LEA, and not once has this question been raised with me. So I very much doubt that there are a lot of constituents out there that want to know this information. I'd actually be surprised and upset if the council even had that information, because I just see it as a total irrelevance. The same way as wanting to know what people's religions are, people's ages, all of it is totally irrelevant to the work we do in this council. So I would very much oppose this motion.
Councillor Mulligan.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, I also oppose the motion. Under the Equal Status Act, we can't look at people or discriminate people based on race. So collecting data for a local authority based on someone's ethnicity is actually not legally sound in these instances. I think the criteria for social housing is clear, and if someone meets the criteria in terms of their financial income, capabilities and their place of residence, then they are entitled to go on the housing list. So I think that's clear, and I think we as councillors are able to ascertain information with specific housing queries with people on the housing list to represent our residents. If they have a query about any issues on the housing list, we can represent them as individuals. A broad motion like this is only looking to discriminate against people based on their ethnicity, which is completely against the law and shouldn't be accepted in any instance. Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked a similar question before. I'm not sure if it was 12 or 13. I asked it first in 2009 at the request of residents in one of our social housing estates, and they actually gave me the question because the question had first been asked by one of our Oireachtas members under a mechanism whereby after the ending of the dual mandate they could ask questions here. So I got very useful information out of it, and so did they. And the second time it was asked, there was a significant drop in the number of non-EU nationals on the list. And I think they found that reassuring. I don't think it's the question we should be concerned about, it's the information. And it's up to us to defend that information and how we make up our social housing list and the legislation behind it and those we provide housing to. So I don't think any of us should be afraid of information.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mayor. I'm also opposed to the motion. I think it's pointless, irrelevant, and an attempt at scapegoating. In terms of the housing crisis, it's absolutely irrelevant in relation to the housing crisis. And I might just refer to one of the issues that I believe has contributed to the housing crisis, reply to, and it was very much appreciated, the reply I got to a question on today's agenda, which said that there were 54 non-active sites in Fingal which have received planning permission for developments of 10 dwellings or more, and the total number of dwellings granted permission but not commenced on those sites is 10,514, consisting of 2,464 houses and over 8,000 apartments. One of those, admittedly, was under judicial review, but only one of them. So, the proliferation of inactive planning permissions is one of the key issues driving the housing crisis. So has been the failure of the state over a long period to intervene effectively in the housing market and to build homes. And that's why the Labour Party made the case in the recent general election for a state construction company and for a use it or lose it clause to activate inactive planning permissions. So let's by all means have a debate on housing, and let's have debate the differences between the parties on that. I think that's absolutely important, democratic. But let's not waste time and let's not waste public resources on stuff that's irrelevant and that will do nothing for anyone. And that's all about pointless, populist point scoring. Thanks very much.
Councillor Sheehan.
Is that on? Yeah. The information was obviously given before. It is relevant, and I think we should be using the information if it's only for integration. The points that Councillor Burchell made were absolutely 100% correct. I don't think we can blame any demographic group for the housing crisis. It's not them. It definitely is the men in suits. But I think having the information and people having the information should at least, if nothing else, allay their fears and let them know that they're not the boogeyman, that the boogeyman is the man with the buildings and the money. And the information can be useful for those people who are trying to integrate into our communities as well. The more information that we have as a county council should help with their integration services. If nothing else, just for their cultural differences, for maybe the effects on the post-traumatic stress from the areas that they're coming from, and for the services that should be able to suit and accommodate those that are coming here as well. So it is information. I think if it is being gathered, there's a purpose to it, and why not let us see the information and break up. Thank you.
From my own point of view, I won't be supporting the motion. Context is everything. And the context within which this motion is brought, and unfortunately seconded by Aintu, working with the National Party, which I find disappointing, is not one of open inquiry into celebration of diversity. It's not even, I don't believe, one of genuine inquiry for an increase in policy. It comes from a place in relation to rhetoric of working against what I believe are the corporate values and against the motion that we passed. And I don't believe it matters. And I think it's important, for example, that the people who looked after my mother and father when they were dying are entitled to be on the housing list. So I believe that I can't support this motion, and I am disappointed that we see people cooperating with the far right in this chamber. Thanks for the clarification, Councillor Troy. It's Councillor Sheehan alone. Thanks. Councillor Troy said that she didn't agree either, so she is not. It's not. It's not Aintu as a group. It's no. Councillor Sheehan on his own. So I apologise to Aintu and to Councillor Troy on that behalf. Councillor Quinlan. We bring the manager in.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have a whole lot to add in addition to what's set out in the report. As I say in the report, we do have this information. It's contained on over 14,000 individual pieces of information. We're not required to collate the information, and there's no benefit that I can discern that in doing that for our purposes at least. We have staff in the department who are working very hard 5 and 7 days a week to kind of meet housing needs and pulling them away from dealing with real difficult cases to collate information in this manner. I don't feel is a justifiable use of public resources. If the motion is passed, we'll happily comply with it, because I don't have there's no ideological slant here from the executive. It's merely a practical approach from our perspective.
Councillor Quinlan.
I want to thank all the councillors for the contribution. It's a very simple question. We have the information be collated. It's whether or not the councillors actually want to collate that information and make it available to the public. That's really it. We can talk all day, every day, about building houses, supply. Unless we know what the demand is coming from foreign nationals, we're just going to concrete over the country and indeed the county just to build houses for people who have not even arrived here yet. So you're looking at a situation where houses are being built and there's people on the social housing list in excess of 15 years. It's unacceptable. Unless we're willing to be transparent with people, if we have this information, if this information can be collated, it should be collated and it should be given to the public for their determination, not ours.
Point of order, Councillor Gearin.
I would just ask, I mean, I'm sorry I was outside. I think this type of motion is divisive and goes against everything that this council has stood for in the last 10 years that I've been a member, which has been inclusive. And I do think that we should have some way of ensuring that people aren't given time to be divisive and to create division. And I just find it offensive as a councillor that we even debate it.
The motion is in order. Councillor Mulligan.
Sorry, I'd just like Councillor Quinlan to correct his wording when he said that people are coming in here who are not residents in the country and getting homes that are being built in this country before people on the social housing list. No, can you just correct that, because you did say that, and that's totally incorrect. Through
the chair.
There might be a lot of issues with our social housing system and the waiting lists and times, but the people who are coming into this country seeking asylum are not getting accommodation above those on the social housing list.
That's noted. Councillor Quillen, you wish to?
I never said that. What I said was that houses are being built for people who have not even arrived here yet. So let me clarify. Either you want me to clarify or you don't want me to clarify.
Right, a last response. We're just getting into a debate here rather than points of order. So I'll give you the final word for the last 10 seconds.
It's information. Why are we so afraid to collate the information and just... It's just information. It's a question I have got asked quite a lot over the last 5 years of being active in the Blanchetown-Mulhuddart constituency. I did put it forward as a question. The question was denied. That's fair enough. I put it forward as a motion just to try and get the data that people want. People want answers to these types of questions, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to ask these types of questions.
Do you accept the manager's report? Okay, so you're putting it to vote?
Members, 1 vote for the motion, 0 abstentions, 28 votes against.
Mayor, I thought that vote's not reflecting. That vote says there are 37 types of vote, there are 37 here. And supported, and the remaining councillors in the chamber opposed.
I think that can be noted. Yeah. So I think that can be noted. I think that's important as well. Thank you, Councillor Gearin. Item number 30, Councillor Dockrell is not here. He hasn't moved. 31, Councillor McCamley, provision for the planting of orchards in public green spaces. A very wholesome motion, I must say, Councillor McCamley.
I know. It's Thanks very much.
Seconded.
I propose, yeah. Look, I was just hoping that the council, and I will accept the manager's report. It's fine. It's just that the reason why I was putting it down was I was hoping the council might plant fruit trees in their own in parks and places that we visit, you know, so that people, you can see it in other countries where people, where the fruit trees are growing actually on the side of the road. And I appreciate that you said you couldn't put them on the side of the road because the fruit falls down and makes the place dirty, etc. And but it wouldn't do any harm in our parks and in our local spaces that we have within housing estates, with, of course, the permission of the people who live around them. But I think it would make the place, especially the blossom in the spring and then the fruit coming in the autumn. And I think it would be just a nice gesture going forward. And we're talking about biodiversity, etc. Great for the bees, absolutely brilliant for the bees. So yeah, but I accept the manager's report, and hopefully going forward we will organise with some groups around the area that this will come to fruition. Thank you.
No other speakers. From my own point of view, Councillor Troy.
I was going to say, county, or I don't know whether it was the county council or Castleknock Tidy Towns, maybe John knows, but we've got quite a lot of fruit trees in Auburn Avenue and Park Avenue, and they are really lovely.
Yeah. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully support the motion, and it is great to see that the council would cooperate with community groups that wish to proceed something like this. But several years ago, we had a motion passed about urban forests, not urban forest. It was a part of a sustainability project that would be urban greenhouse, so there would be fruit trees, berries, edible plants within our urban space and parklets. The fact that it wasn't mentioned in the reply, does that mean that it's completely off the agenda?
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, listen, I think it's a great motion by Councillor McCamley, and there are some precedents for it, which actually were alluded to by Councillor Troy. There were 3 open orchards planted in Castleknock at the instigation of Castleknock Tidy Towns, but in each case with the support of the operations team. All of those have been very successful, and they do provide kind of just an example of what could be done. One is in Beach Park, one is actually almost directly outside my estate in Ashley. They're very popular. They showcase native Irish species, and I think and a variety of fruit trees as well. So they're very good for biodiversity, very progressive development, and I think the council should do everything it can to encourage that.
Councillor Healy.
We have had good provision, and particularly in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of community organisations taking up either community gardens, community orchards, Howth, Baldoyle, Bayside, certainly very significant developments in the last number of years, and they've gotten good assistance from this council, both in terms of plants, but also the water supply, for a bit of irrigation and so on. What I think we haven't been doing is doing the outreach to encourage other community associations, and especially in the new areas where the community organisations themselves are much weaker. They haven't got the history, and they've often got fewer people with the necessary time. And I think when those groups are engaging with the council, support and encouragement, the kind of help that we've given to the stronger groups needs to be more. It needs to be support and encouragement for the other groups, and I think that's really where Councillor McCamley's motion could take us if we agree it. Thank you.
From my own point of view, I'd really like to support the motion. I do note that it does require management of the fruit trees in order for them to be productive. There is an ongoing commitment and trying to get an effort from people to ensure that they're properly pruned every year, so that you don't end up with them going wild, as has happened to an apple tree near me. But I'd like to support the motion. Councillor McCamley.
Coming in, but yeah, that's fine. It's grand. It's just that I feel it should be, more widespread. If we could just get it in places that are public places, And I realise it is actually more work, but I think I think it would look well, So yeah, thank you.
Item number 32, Councillor Quinn. Second to Councillor Donnelly.
I want to welcome the response, and I just want to put some context into this. Ostensibly, domestic violence and domestic abuse affects women more so than men. I'm not discounting the fact that men are also affected by this, without a shadow of a doubt. But primarily, women are affected, and it is usually what happens is the women and the children are leaving the family home, and the application process for any of the councils that haven't come across this yet, and I'm sure you all have, is that you are included in the medical priority application process. So what this motion is looking for is an actual welfare application form, which Dublin City Council, I first came across the Dublin City Council do. This would make an enormous help, or will enormously help women, and primarily women in this situation, in violent situations, to be able to expedite their housing applications, and it would make a world of a difference for the mental health of these women and these children. So I very much welcome this report, and I'm sure everyone in the council would support this as well. Thank you very much.
Councillor Mulville.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to support Councillor Quinn's motion, and just to touch upon the wider issue of housing welfare and access to the housing welfare team. I have a question down there kind of related to that. In terms of the housing welfare number of social workers we employ here, and Councillor Quinn mentions the situation in Dublin City Council. It's much more easier to access the housing welfare team that's drop-in clinics, for example, in Ballymoon, Finglas, in the inner city, where if you need to see a housing welfare officer, you can drop into them and discuss issues like Councillor Quinn is raising here. So maybe it's something we should return to again, but I really think it's something we need to look at around the access to housing welfare. And I think it's probably related to the past when I think the housing welfare service was shared between the city and the county back in the day. So there was a much better, pretty more wide-ranging service across the whole of Dublin City and County around housing welfare. So just to make that point, and certainly something we can return to again. Thanks very much.
Councillor Donnelly.
And thank you. I'd like to support Councillor Quinn's motion. It's an excellent motion, and I don't think we can understate how difficult it is for women to leave situations where they are victims of domestic abuse, and a lot of the time they have got their children in tow with them, and it's a very difficult process. And I think it's incumbent on us as a council to learn from other councils' best practice. So if there's a situation in other councils that's working really well, then we should absolutely adopt those systems. So thanks a lot, Malachy, for the motion.
You happy to come in, are you? Councillor Quinn? No to the report?
No to report.
Great. Thanks. Councillor Healy, 33, Sustainable Urban Drainage Systems.
I suppose what this is a request for in relation to progress, and what's in the climate action plan, which I referred to there, is our 7 actions, F15 to F21, and they're very well written. They cover kind of the full range from what's in the local area plans, what's happening on Fingal's own buildings, what's happening in terms of green roofs, what's happening in the capital projects in general, and what's happening kind of at the individual household level. And certainly one of the things we all see from canvassing, we've been canvassing a lot this year, is changes to front gardens, and the increasing numbers of front gardens which are receiving impermeable paving really starts to worry you when you get to some streets. You kind of say, these people are going to create a problem unwittingly for themselves and their neighbours at some point in the future. So I suppose the first part of the question really is about progress in relation to implementing the actions, and the first of the actions has to do with promoting and encouraging community involvement in the retrofit of SUDs in existing developments, maintaining community rain gardens, discouraging hard paving in gardens, and retrofitting rain gardens, and so on. And to see exactly what progress we're making on that really is probably the first question. Now, there's also a question as to what we're doing on our own buildings and our own sites. And I suppose the follow-on then is to understand what the impact is in terms of the total areas that we're seeing paved, permeable, impermeable, the total kind of flashiness of the water systems that we have, because that's what's creating a really significant flooding risk for a lot of our communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, just as the report points out, it is something that obviously our water services section within my own departments assess as part of just any planning application comes in. But I think, in fairness to the department, I think they've bbeen incredibly proactive in this space. They recently published a householder's guide to sustainable drainage in the latter end of this year. It's a very, I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to read, I'm sure Councillor Healy is familiar with it. It's a very, very accessible document. What I might say to the team is we might look at trying to push that out through our social media, just in terms of making that document more widely known, because I think it is a very helpful document. It's very informative, but it's written in such a way that it's accessible to anyone that wants to find out more and how they can make a difference just in terms of any of those permeable options in their own driveways. The team will also be then following up with a guide to green and blue roof installations, and they're currently working on that. And again, the idea is that that will set out some quite complex ideas in a very accessible manner. And again, these documents are available on our website, but maybe there's just a little bit of, we should be a little bit more proactive on how we push them out there. And I'll speak to Jerry McDermott tomorrow and see is there any opportunity to make the documents as widely known as possible.
Councillor Healy.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't aware of that document until earlier this afternoon as we were chatting outside before the meeting. So there's definitely a challenge in terms of dissemination and getting the word out. Well, one of the houses I canvassed was very interesting. The house owner was changing the front garden to enable car parking, but he was quite determined to ensure that it was going to be a permeable paving system. So the awareness is out there in the community. It's not the case that nobody knows, but it is the case, I suppose, that contractors are probably doing what's easiest or what's cheapest, and we really need to get this message to the individual householders on every street, into the tidy towns, the residents associations, so that there's a common awareness that actually people are creating a risk for themselves and their neighbours in the way that they manage water and paving, and that it's possible to pave in a permeable way, that this isn't kind of an absolute you can't change your garden kind of an issue. So I don't know how many copies have been printed of this, but it's a big challenge to get the message out as far as we can. Thanks very much.
Report noted.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor O'Brien, Community Wardens, not here. Nobody moving on his behalf. Councillor Donnelly, Support Services to Fingal residents.
Proposed. I don't think I've ever put a motion on the agenda for this meeting and got to it within the 2 weeks, but I do welcome it. Whilst looking at the recent budget document, I noticed the list of different approved housing bodies and services that we would use for our social housing tenants. And there's a lot of them, some of them I don't know at all, others I'd have a bit more interaction with. Tuath isn't there, but I'd have quite a bit of interaction with Tuath in Hansfield Wood, and I know that they set up resident associations with their tenants, and they have a weekly clinic. But I'd just like to know, and I think the rest of my colleagues here would appreciate knowing the breadth of the services that are offered by these different agencies within Fingal. So I welcome the report, and I would appreciate the motion being passed. Thank you.
Councillor Mulville.
Thanks, Chair. Just to support Councillor Donnelly's motion, and she makes a very good point there. And just to ask as well that the place finder service maybe be included in that, which is something that has been around for a while, but it'd be good to maybe to get a briefing on that as well when the other services are brought before us. That's the place finder service for people trying to find a place with the homeless app. Thanks very much.
Councillor McCamley.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank Councillor Donnelly for bringing this up, because I always feel, there are so many housing agencies and how do they all deal? Do they deal in the same way with their residents or their tenants, or what way? So, and how many have we, and how many are we using at this particular time, or how many is involved at this particular time? So it's sort of something that I always have the back of my mind to ask you about. So I really appreciate Councillor Donnelly bringing this up, and it would be lovely to meet the people involved and have a meeting. So thank you for that.
Councillor Donnelly, do you want to come in again? Motion agreed? Agreed. And now we're on to non-statutory functions motions. Councillor Burchell. Seconded Councillor Healy.
Thanks, Chair. Like Councillor Donnelly, I'm surprised we got to this non-statutory. As I read the motion which I put in a couple of months ago, I see the figure of deaths is hopelessly out of date. It's many multiples of that. Many multiples of innocent people have been slaughtered in a genocide being conducted against the Palestinian people. This motion originated from the Palestinian community, who we've made contact with as part of the campaign in Dublin 15 over the past year, and you know they asked for this as a show of solidarity, which you know may seem not that important to us, but it is hugely important to them. You know, even the slightest show of recognition and solidarity and understanding of what is happening to them is immensely important to the people who are, you know, facing this appalling crime against humanity. I'm not prepared, I'll be honest. I didn't think we were going to get to it, so I'm going to have to take this back to the Palestinian community in Dublin 15 and, you know, see what proposals they come forward with which locations and how to meet the criteria outlined here, which, you know, are quite stringent in parts. So when we do come back, I'd be asking for some understanding from the council, you know, as to the nature of what's occurring in Palestine and trying to complete a twinning arrangement under those circumstances. Thank you.
Accept the report. Councillor Gearan.
Yeah, I have to say, Councillor Burchell, I don't think it should be necessary for you to go back. I mean, this is a twinning protocol that would apply in normal circumstances if we were trying to twin with a normal town. This is something I want to support. I think this is something that we at Fingal should be seen to support. It is probably the most horrific crimes that we've seen against humanity in our lifetime. And I know that the council have procedures and everything else to follow. That's in a normal situation. There's nothing normal about this. And I think if Councillor Burchell is going back to the Palestinian community, I'd like certainly that he'd be able to go back and say, yeah, it didn't meet with this, that and the other, but we all saw the significance. We all want to be seen to support. We all want to be there with you. So I certainly hope that you'll put this to a vote or have it agreed so you can go back to the Palestinian community and tell them that we, as elected representatives, are fully supportive of them and want to be associated with them. Thanks, Mayor.
Agreed, and I think the passing of the motion would maintain an intention. We still have to go through the piece, but obviously the thing that we have in common in this kind of context is just basic humanity, and it'll come through a decision there in a report, etc. But let's just say I think that I think it's right that we should go back to the Palestinian community for them to suggest where best we should look to, but that we should, with your permission, pass the motion to show that our intention would be to do so. Councillor Burchell.
Yeah, thanks to Councillor Gearan and yourself, Mayor, for that. And yeah, I would like the motion to be agreed.
Agreed. Councillor Walsh, accessibility at train stations. He didn't give anybody permission to propose it, no. Councillor on O'Meara, he might not get a second chance. It's the first time we've been on non-statutory that I've been here in a while. So, Councillor O'Meara.
Yeah, propose. Yeah, thank you. No, I'll be very brief. I do accept the report. The report has been in order all the while, but I was just waiting to get to this point where I could actually, you know, maybe speak to the motion. It's a very touchy one because I know a lot of young people, like I said earlier, you know, as a youth worker, you know, when young people, you know, are injured as a result of, you know, their recklessness or maybe even the lack of regulation, you know, it's something that affects everyone. And on the other hand, there have been a number of accidents that affected other members of the community, again, on account of, you know, the lack of regulation on this. So I'm delighted to see that, you know, we got to this point, and I do accept the report. Thank you very much.
Councillor Gearan.
Fully supportive of the motion. I just can't resist it. That I have to say, it reminds me of the commitments when the bike was going around the block and Colomini came out, red alert, red alert. So very supportive of the motion.
The report noted? Noted. Councillor Mulligan, local authorities' role in recovery and resilience facility funding.
Post.
Seconded.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm glad we got to this motion. I think because I use Fingal County Council and other local authorities who became non-statutory, because I believe the motion is broader than Fingal on its own, but essentially now the Repower EU funding as well as the COVID-19 recovery and resilience facility funding, there is nearly €1 billion in monies available from the EU that to date Ireland have only ascertained 334 million since 2022. So we have just over 2.5 years to draw down essentially 3/4 of a funding stream that we have available to us. And I think we should be looking at local authorities and other statutory bodies to have a say, or at least put plans forward to try and ascertain funding in this regard, because it covers a massive array of areas from green transition, digital transformation, social recovery and job creation, all on the back of COVID-19. So I do think that at least if local authority members can bring motions forward, that we should have a stake in the funding stream if we have knowledge about it, and yeah, we should have a say in it if at all possible. So I hope that members agree with me in being passed this motion.
Motion agreed? Agreed. Motion 40, Councillor Murphy.
Thanks very much, Chair. I just want to explain a little bit of history behind this motion. And I've been asked by people who are particularly living in rural aspects and areas that are less well populated. And they seem to be the most disenfranchised when it comes to standing at a bus stop in the pouring rain. And I'm thinking of people who are not able to drive and may be totally dependent on public transport. And the reason they're disenfranchised is because the way in which the mechanism for delivering shelters is done through a commercial basis. And what happens is there's a private company that will actually look at an area, supply a shelter, as long as that shelter offers a value by way of commercial advertisement. So that's why you see all these advertisements in areas where there are greater populated areas in urban settings, and most of those bus stops will have a shelter because it offers a value. So it's not the company that should be supplying, the transportation company that should be supplying the shelter. It's a commercial venture. I think we need to rethink that and look at how we deliver that across the whole of Fingal, particularly in the rural areas. So I accept the manager's report, but I would like within the communication to have some communication with regard to the way in which the mechanism is being delivered. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to pass it in order for it to go on. Councillor Maguire.
Yeah, again, I just want to support the motion.
And it's something I'm sure every single one of us in this chamber get asked, is about bus stops or bus shelters. And certainly when you drive any stretch of road, there's an awful lot of people depending on public transport, and they're walking from their home to a bus stop with no shelter. And, you know, in this day and age, we don't live in a sunny climate. There's rain every second day. So it is deterring people from using public transport. It's easier for them to jump in their car if they're lucky enough to have a car. And I think, as Councillor Murphy said, you know, the people that should be making the decision is not the one that is actually calling the shots on it. And it's important for our rural communities as well as our urban communities that have room. Not everywhere has room for a bus shelter, I get that, but there's certain places along many routes that actually have room for a bus shelter, and there is no reason why we shouldn't be providing them. Thank you.
Councillor Mulligan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Murphy, for bringing this forward. I agree in principle, but there are some rural areas that we're looking to get a bus stop at a bus stop, as in there's actually no bus stop at the bus stop, never mind a pathway. So whilst I think it's 100% warranted, like, we have a real issue with regards getting bus stops safe in the first place and actually walkable in the first place in some of our rural communities. And so much so that some bus stops are being discontinued by Dublin Bus because they're not being insured, even though they're historic bus stops, because there's no footpath or safe place for the buses to pull in. And that's a real issue for people, and we are not going to incentivise people in rural communities which are getting built up to get public transport if we can provide proper and safe bus stops and facilities. So I agree in that point, but it's something we really need to look at in a significant way across the county. Thank you.
Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to agree with the motion very strongly as well, and I'd just like to suggest that maybe we need some way of getting ongoing engagement with the NTA in relation to this. If we send the motion, we're likely to get a letter back saying, yes, we're providing 10 bus stops a year, this is our answer, when really we need engagement to have them into an SPC, and to emphasise A, how important it is from the Council's point of view, but B, probably, and I would suggest, if the NTA isn't willing to take this seriously at the level that it's needed, that we as a council would look at it as an area where we would dedicate resources as well. Because I don't think it's right, as Councillor Murphy said, that we should be dependent upon an advertising company's evaluation of the bus stop. This is about public transport and the needs of the passengers and our communities. Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor. It's something we've actually spoken about before, is that the ongoing engagement, these kind of motions normally come through our area committees seeking kind of bus stops at individual places. So I think it might be helpful if the executive forward on how a bus stop gets placed, because the NTA does seem to be confused, and that thinks it's the council's role to identify a location, when it's the executive's role just to give plan permission for the bus shelters. I'd also like to probably revisit this in the new year, but in preparations for next year's budget, we should certainly look at a mechanism of rates, because at the end of the day, these bus shelters are a commercial enterprise, and we probably should be charging them rates for the space they're occupying on our footpaths, and then ring-fenced funding for bus stops in less commercial areas that they just don't want to build. Thank you.
Councillor Tormey.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in support of this motion, I'm just wondering if there's any update from yourself or the Chief Executive in relation to the letter from the NTA on the 6th of August 2024, where they requested a meeting with ourselves in order to present the Greater Dublin Area Transport Strategy 22 to 42. And because obviously, and it comes up quite a lot, there are a lot of issues relating to the NTA, and I've contacted yourself about this, and I kind of let it slide because of the election, but we do need to have that meeting with the NTA. Thank you.
Councillor Anna Ware.
Thank you, Mayor. I welcome this motion. I think sometime in 2022, I raised a similar motion for a bus shelter to be built, just one. And till date, that bus shelter has not been built. And I'm aware of the correspondence to ask the NTA to come in, and so we could at least, have an interaction and see how they operate. My thinking is, rather than individual members of, councillors bringing motions like this for the NTA to build bus shelters, why can't we have, a strategy as a council to put forward areas where we think the NTA should be? Because it would seem as if it's dependent on councillors bringing this type of motion before we can make a commitment for the NTA to do something about it. And I don't think that is the way we should be planning. We should have a more concise, deliberate, and strategic way of, letting the NTA know these are the areas where bus shelters need to be built, and certain other facilities. We've been talking about soundproofing of certain areas of our communities, and these haven't happened in addition to the bus shelter issue. So I think we need to be a little bit more deliberate and precise in how we interact and deal with the NTA rather than individual councillors bringing in motions. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Chair. On this motion, I welcome this motion by Mr. Councillor Murphy here. I worked for advertising companies and that involved with the councils and so on and NTA. I do think that the NTA, when it's up for tender for bus shelter advertising, that they should create a sort of a cap or something in conjunction with the tender, that they can build shelters without advertising to facilitate the community rather than just advertising every bus shelter. Thank you.
From my own point of view, just in relation to that, I hope to have a separate meeting, a briefing in January or February. The date has been, we have asked and we're looking to agree that. From my own point of view, I'd remind particularly councillors who are members of government parties that, the reason this is in non-statutory is because it's as a result of the NTA responsibility, and that, we can keep writing and saying what we want, but, the Minister for Transport, we want to try and get that, and hopefully the next government will look at a way of doing this. From my own point of view, it's nearly a year now since we had a bus stop and shelter removed in Portmarnock. I've put in a couple of questions of it, and I've been told that it is going to be put back in whenever the people who got the tender are going to put it back in. It's outrageous, and I think that this motion needs to be passed, and then I think as well, during the briefing with the NTA, we need to push that forward. And then at a national level, we all need to be making sure that we, that we change this, and also that we look to fund it. Because we're not at the circumstance anymore where we need to be begging for money off advertisements to get bus shelters, I would hope. But I would remind councillors that, that you can lobby, for example, the Minister for Finance maybe, Councillor Anna-Maria, your own party colleagues, as well as within the council to do that. Or indeed, yeah. Councillor.
Thanks very much, and thanks to councillors for their contributions. And I think we're moving into an area where we may have to adopt a policy or responsibility within the council to deliver it. And if we were to look at the mechanism for collecting on the advertisement, it might be a methodology. And I know the rates idea, I think, is a clever one as well. But I think we need to sit down and think about this, because what I'm hearing here is that we are, as you say, Chair, yourself, we're writing letters ad nauseum with no response of any action coming back other than a straightforward response. We hear you, we'll do it, whatever. But there is no real action coming off it. So if we're going to be serious about delivering for the people who live in Fingal, and to make sure that we're going to try and create an opportunity for people to use public transport, and as Councillor Maguire says, in all the inclement weather that we do get in this country, then we need to be real about making sure that it can be a little bit more comfortable in making them do so. So, look, thanks very much. I accept the response, and I think we'll wait till we have the NTA in front of us at an SPC or if it's in full council, and then we can challenge it and see how we move from there. Thank you.
Motion agreed? Agreed. Item 41, Councillor Sheehan.
I'll second it.
Councillor Sheehan.
Sorry. Yeah, I came across a number of houses that were disconnected for various reasons. One was actually an outage that just occurred, and some were the inability for those people to pay. Another actually couple were builders, and I'd like us to try and enhance our relationship with the Electricity Supply Board by reminding them of the close relationship that we have with them in an effort to improve any of the resources that they need, anything that we can do for them, and obviously things that we could that they could do for us to get these houses ready and back on the market quicker. And that's it. Thank you.
Motion agreed. Councillor Kelly. Report on antisocial behaviour in Fingal.
Proposed.
Seconded.
Thanks, Chair. The reason why I've asked to request the CEO of Fingal County Council to request a report is because on a daily basis I've personally seen antisocial behaviour in the town I live in, which is Swords. I'm also aware that in other towns in Fingal there's antisocial behaviour night and day. I.e., for example, I was out there recently and groups of young men and women in their early late teens gathering outside a fast food restaurant in Swords who are intimidating people, walking by, shouting, swearing, fighting. Alcohol and drug abuse is a regular occurrence, and antisocial behaviour is a constant thing outside this particular restaurant. Also was at a venue there recently, left about 1 in the morning, came up to the town in Swords, seeing a lot of people attacking each other with hammers. It's just not acceptable at all. Absolutely shocking to see, and people were in fear. And this is in this town I live in. But also, antisocial behaviour is on the rise in Fingal. We need more policing, especially outside late night venues, especially on weekends, before something more serious arises down the line. We also need more community policing in our streets in Fingal, not in cars. This will be a strong deterrent against antisocial behaviour. Thanks.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor, and I fully support the motion and fully agree with it. And it is unfortunate that such a motion has to be brought to this chamber, because once upon a time we had joint policing committees where there was an abundance of councillors that had ongoing engagement with local guards and other community groups. The very fact that they've been replaced with these local community safety partnerships that I do believe still is waiting for a chairperson in this area, or possibly have an update on that if the executive can come in. So it is just another way that local government has been eroded by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael.
Councillor Mulligan.
Yeah, no, the antisocial behaviour is a real issue. We've seen, not just in Swords, but a lot in all our local areas of public toilets being vandalised by groups of youths, and it's beyond a joke now. And the problem is, even with Garda resources, some of these young people, and a huge amount of them, aren't intimidated, afraid of the Gardaí in any way, and they're more inclined to take their phone out and record the Gardaí and hurl abuse at the Gardaí than actually believe that the Gardaí can provide any sort of deterrent. Because the reality is, if someone's under 18, unless they do commit serious crime, they don't believe that they can any of the punitive JLO measures affect them. And we need to look at how we actually prevent crime and, engage with people who are providing antisocial behaviour, because the current model at this moment in time is not a preventative measure. It's not reducing the harm, and it's not fixing the issue. So I think there's a huge amount of concern there, and we also need to incentivise more people to join the Gardaí, but we need to give the Gardaí better resources to actually carry out the law in a more proactive manner. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd like to support the motion. I think we have to be very wary of how we project the image of a town, but also be realistic about what's actually happening and how we might prevent the antisocial behaviour. I think there are other stakeholders that might like to get engaged in a way in which we could come up with a strategy for prevention and not just leave it to the Gardaí. But we spoke before about CCTV around the area. You have the nighttime economy, which is impacted on greatly by antisocial behaviour in a town, and we need to make sure that if we're talking to possibly the Fingal Dublin Chamber, to see if any of their members from a retail perspective have any insights in regard to the impact that it's having on their trade and how they might come up with a solution as well. So I think there's a collaboration of work needed in order to get to a resolution. And the Gardaí have limited resources, and we all know that, and we'd like to think that they could actually build on that to do more. But there is a serious, I think it's a growing phenomenon. There's a serious lack of respect for Gardaí today, which is one of the biggest problems. And that heretofore, years ago, you see a guard, you would respect the guard, and if he told you to do something, you'd do it. You'd move out of the way, whatever. But today, unfortunately, for some reason, there isn't that respect, and therefore it's very, very challenging for them to do their job. They have mobile phones with video stuck in their faces, so it's really, really, really difficult. So I think that there has to be an overall if you like, a helicopter view on this, to look at all of the stakeholders who are impacted, particularly the business community in the main street, and to see if we can actually come up with a strategy and a solution that will support the work that the Gardaí are doing in a way that's meaningful and gets a good positive result. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
I'd like to thank the councillors for their support on this motion. I think it's great. I just do think that antisocial behaviour is on the rise in Fingal. I suppose it's best to get it now rather than it's too late when something tragic, really tragic happens. I'd like to call on the CEO of Fingal County Council to work with An Garda Síochána hierarchy and government to request more community policing in the streets of Fingal. I really, really strongly believe that that needs to be in place soon. Thank you.
Motion agreed. Item number 43, and we'll take item number 44 at the same time. Proposed. Seconded, Councillor McCamley. Councillor Mulville, seconded, Councillor Mulligan. I think this bill should have been brought in long ago. I think the scale of what's happening is unimaginable, and I think it's the minimum that we can do is to pass this motion, and then hopefully the new Dáil will enact it. It's just becoming clearer and clearer that the damage that's been done to Palestinian people, but also to all of the infrastructure, right down to the agricultural land that people are going to need to survive, is of a scale that's unprecedented. The level of child casualty is beyond anything that has been seen in any conflict in living memory in terms of the size of it, and I hope that the Council agrees and passes this motion. Councillor Mulville.
Thanks, Chair. Just to strongly support your comments there. I think you made the case very, very well. And the Council, you know, as we've noted before, has a strong tradition of solidarity with the people of Palestine. And I think in the recent general election, we saw that all the party leaders, I think all the 10 party leaders who were involved in the televised debate, voiced their support for this Occupied Territories Bill. And, you know, this is a very opportune moment with the programme for government under negotiation, as you mentioned earlier, to have this written in and to get moving, and for the Dáil to enact it and be the first in the EU to do it. And we heard from, I think, the Irish barrister, Blina Nigralik, who was speaking on behalf of South Africa, who really made a strong case for Ireland to take that first step and to lead the way across Europe for enacting the Occupied Territories Bill. Thanks, Chair.
Look, I propose to extend the meeting if required to finish these two items. Agreed. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, I support the motion, and it reminds me of the Dunstores workers in the 80s protesting against apartheid and making that case not to handle South African goods. But this is on a larger scale. This is without them women doing what they did back in the 80s, we wouldn't have the confidence to be able to say 10 party leaders standing in front of the TV to say they support this. Now is the opportunity. We're negotiating a programme for government, and whoever may form that government, all parties should give a firm commitment that within 6 months that this Occupied Territories Bill will be passed, because we have a certain standing within the international community because of our peacekeepers, because of our stance over many years in the United Nations, and our stance against apartheid and our stance against anti-imperialism as well. We need to stand firmly with the Palestinian people, and we need to stand firmly with the ordinary farmers whose olive trees are being bulldozed down to build numerous amounts of settlements for people to come in and take the lands off them. Thank you very much.
Councillor Mulligan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Mulvihill, for bringing these motions forward. It was a motion that I wanted to bring forward myself, but I didn't have room on the agenda. And I'm delighted we got to it at this stage today, so it's greatly appreciated. I know the Swords Palestinian Committee, as well as the Balbriggan Solidarity Committees, were very eager for these motions to be heard, so it's greatly appreciated. Like the number, you could put any figure on it now, and in a month's time it would be hundreds or thousands of people more. The actual devastation that's been live streamed across online is beyond reproach, and we need to do something about it. And I agree with Councillor Quinn in terms of the Dunstore anti-apartheid strike, but unfortunately the Industrial Relations Act prevents us from doing some similar solidarity in our own workplaces, which I think is something we should also be allowed to do. And you know, if we're working in retail sectors or any sectors that have to handle products like that, we should be allowed to amend our contracts to prevent us from handling Israeli goods if that's our prerogative. And I do think a stance like this, the Occupied Territories Bill, would open the door for the Industrial Relations Act to look at things like that, handling goods in those instances, because that's exactly what this bill covers. So I'm just really happy that it's heard here this evening, and I think it would be great if every single councillor in this chamber put their name to it and said, we completely support this. What's happening here is a war crime, it's a genocide, and we completely are against it in every shape or form, and we want the ICJ to engage with Netanyahu as a war criminal, just like the other war criminals around the world. Thank you.
Councillor Burchell.
Yeah, fully support the two motions. The Occupied Territories Bill should have been passed a long time ago. The reason it wasn't is because the previous government shelved it using the money message, a bureaucratic ruse. They did that because they were under instruction from Washington. And really, you know, likewise with the recognition of the Palestinian state, that should have happened decades ago. These things have come on the agenda now, not because the government wishes that to be the case, but because there's a mass movement on the streets for over a year now, applying the pressure. And that's why these things are back on the table. And without people on the streets, ordinary, decent people, none of this will be happening, because our government is, in many ways, complicit with this genocide. It allows, you know, Irish airspace to be used to transport munitions to Israel in order to conduct this genocide. Shannon Airport is a stopover for the US military, who, you know, is enabling this as well. So really, they've been badly exposed. They pay lip service to the Palestinian cause, but really, when push comes to shove, in all practical senses, the Irish government has done nothing to help the Palestinian people, and that needs to be called out. That contrasts with a magnificent movement of people on the streets, week in, week out, in towns and cities across Ireland, marching against this appalling crime against humanity. And I want to commend those people for their determination and their decency, which contrasts sharply with our political establishment. Thank you.
Councillor High.
Yeah, I'd like to support this motion.
the Irish government previously said they couldn't support this. They couldn't enact the Occupied Territories Bill as it would breach EU law. However, when the ICJ set out their advisory opinion that Israel's occupation of Palestine was illegal, they sought fresh legal advice from the Attorney General, who said the bill could be enacted, and unfortunately it wasn't in the last all, and it should have been. So I would like to support this motion, and I know all my Fianna Fáil colleagues will as well. Thanks.
To come in myself, I think Councillor Mulligan raises an important point. There is another bill which was before the last Dáil from Deputy Duncan Smith, which is a very short bill which would have allowed for workers to refuse to handle goods from the occupied territories on that basis. So I would commend the motion to the Chamber. Councillor Mulville.
Thanks, Chair. No, just to agree with you and commend it to the Chamber also. Thanks.
Yeah, apologies, Councillor Honorary, you just made it, but motion's agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Apologies that we're 2 minutes over, but having been so quick on the Chief Executive's report, I think it really gave us extra room in order to conduct all of the motions. So thanks for everybody, and see you in January. Happy Christmas. Sorry, apologies. There will be a special meeting. The Mayor will be calling a special meeting to facilitate co-option of members in time for the Shannon election. So we'll be looking to try and get a quorum on it. It is to be agreed as to whether it's the 16th or the 18th. It may well be the 18th, but I have to give 3 days notice, so keep an eye out on your emails, and I'll speak to the parties concerned whose job it will be to get themselves a quorum. All right, thanks.